We will now call the City Council regular meeting to order for December 9th, 6 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be given by Pastor Jason Kopta.
Good evening. I'm Roy Meltzer, standing in for Pastor Kopta.
Good.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for each and every member on this council tonight, Father God. We pray that they just use their common sense and that they use the wisdom and discernment that you have given them. We thank you for the sacrifices that they make for being here each and every time and taking care of this city. In Christ Jesus' name, let everything be done decently and in order. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Madam Clerk, if you'll please do the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Present.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Present.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Here.
Councilmember Bernard.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First up, under organizational, we have the appointment of the deputy mayor.
Can I just make a comment before we jump on that?
Sure.
You know, it went in such a disarray at the last meeting, and I was talking to a high schooler just about 2 weeks ago, and the suggestion was, because we couldn't make up our minds on how we were going to go about if it was going to be a yearly thing, a 3-yearly thing, or 2-year thing, and because the idea was that since one had already been a deputy mayor for 3 years, that those that want to be a deputy mayor go ahead and put their name in a hat and just let someone from the audience just pull it out of the hat, excluding the one that just was. So I was just going to make a suggestion that I know that Brenda said she wanted to be it. I don't know that Stanley does. I don't. But because we've already had someone for 3 years, and if there is 2 other or 3 other council members that would like to do it, rather than the embarrassment or the forcefulness or whatever, or the, the negativity that it portrays, I would just suggest that those that want to be it, that aren't it currently, just suggest that they want to and put your names in a hat, and someone from the audience please pull the name, and then the end of story. If you do that every year, it's no problem. If no one wants it, then the one that was is, but to me, the one that already has had it for 3 years.
Who was that?
You.
I haven't been for 3 years.
1 year?
1 year.
1 year.
Brenda
Well,
Gray
then
was
make
2
it a
years
year.
before.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know what Brenda, she had made the motion that she wanted to be it or a part of it, but it was such disarray. I didn't hear from Mr. Spurlock, and I just think that moving forward, if we're going to go through this every year, it's going to be the same thing every year. So if we just set some basic little ground rules that don't take much effort whatsoever, to me it just makes it more fair. That way, those that would like to do it have a chance.
Yeah. That's why in the past the mayor's always picked, every election basically.
But the mayor doesn't,
never.
it's
Yeah.
always been, no, it hasn't. I mean, I've sat in this room before where there have been council members that suggest someone else's name. It's always been just a favorable response because no one else cared.
Right.
But this time it seems to be that others do care.
Yeah.
And if we want to be fair, then I think that that's the most fair thing to do, so.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think that Jim has done a fine job.
And that's fine,
in the
and I
year.
do too.
He's been very dependable in that role. Anytime I haven't been able to be there, he's always been there. And having said that, I'll make a motion that
Wait, just
that
a
Jim
minute.
Bernard
Before
is
you-
a deputy
before
mayor.
you make a motion, may I make a
I've already made a
statement as
motion.
well?
Does anyone care to second the motion?
I'll second so Brenda can talk.
We have a
Okay,
motion and a
yeah.
second. Go ahead, Brenda.
Okay, I just would like to say that I'm not saying that Jim has not done a good job. You've never said that about me, so I'm taking under the impression that I have not done a good job. But
I didn't
that's
say that.
okay.
You've never been my
I have been your deputy
You
mayor
have,
as
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
several years, the whole time that you were up here back.
Yeah.
But that's okay. And I'm not saying that Jim has not done a good job, and I think I was there for you whenever you were not available.
You were indeed, yeah.
Okay, and I said that I wanted to be deputy mayor, but after considerations, I really don't want to be deputy mayor. I prefer allowing someone else the opportunity to be deputy mayor. And I was going to nominate Stanley Spurlock, because Maria said she don't want to be it. I don't want to be it. I don't know if Jim wants to be it or not, but that's what I
I think he's made it abundantly clear that he does.
He hasn't been here to any of the meetings to be able to.
Jim, do you want to be the deputy mayor?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Well, then that's the conundrum. How do you make it fair to where one person gets
Well,
to do it?
there's
and-
5 members, you vote, and the best of 5 wins. That's how it works.
Well, I just hope that in the future, when the situation comes up again, that it be based off of the individuals that have not been deputy mayor, have the opportunity to do so.
I think it'll be
Yeah.
based off of the same thing, the same 5-person vote as every other thing that gets passed in the city.
And that's fine, but I'm just saying, you know, in the end, we're trying to be more equitable.
I think we are being very equitable.
Well, I don't think so. I think that, you
That's
know,
fine. That's your opinion.
if
That's
we
fine.
decide to do it every year, which I'm willing to do, that, you know, is anyone else, I don't know, we have a motion on the table already,
Yep.
but if this council as a majority wants to switch it up every year, then I think it's incumbent on them to be able to do that as well.
And they
So,
can do so. We
okay.
have a motion and a second. Any further comments?
I take that as a nomination, because you really nominate, and it doesn't require a second. So you have actually 2 nominations, and at this point, you just simply vote for who you want to have as a call of the roll.
Say that
So
again?
when they call-
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of voting yes or no, you're simply going to call the name that you want.
That's right.
Everybody got that?
Well, I have a question. Mr.
ahead.
Spurlock, would you like to be deputy mayor?
Yeah, I'll take it. I would like to be.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody clear?
Got it.
All right, please call the roll.
Who are we voting for first?
You're voting for the person that you want to be
Okay.
deputy mayor.
All right, got you.
Yep.
Councilmember Gray,
Stanley Spurlock.
Councilmember Spurlock,
Stanley Spurlock.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Stanley Spurlock.
Councilmember Bernard,
Let's make it anonymous, or unanimous. What's the word? Stanley Spurlock.
Unanimous-
Let him do it.
unanimous. Mayor
Let him-
Anderson,
Jim Bernard.
Thank you.
Stanley's got 3 votes,
No, he got.
He
You got 4. 4 to 1.
4-1, yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Stanley, if you have any questions about that, you can get with the staff. They'll explain everything to you. All right, now we have the introduction of temporary human resources risk manager.
Okay, we have a temporary part-time human resources risk manager, has a lot of experience in government, and his name is David Shoup. And David, would you please come up to the podium? This is David.
Good to meet you, David.
He started last week. He is going to be working Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday until we get a new manager, and then the new manager can decide what they want to do. If they, he's willing to work to stay on full-time, if that's what's wanted. But he also knows that right now he's only given the temporary part-time position, so.
Okay.
And he's
Welcome.
willing
Thank
to,
you.
to deal with that, so.
Very good to meet you, David. Is there anything you
Welcome.
care to address to us, or?
No,
Okay.
just wanted to make sure everybody saw my face, and everybody has, a lot of people have heard my name and like, who is this guy? So, so, you know,
Yep.
again, my hope is to go from part-time, temporary to full-time, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Well, we very much appreciate your willingness to help us out in this time of need.
All right?
I do have a question, though,
Yes.
and maybe it could be answered between you and Kim. I know that prior to the eventual leaving of the prior HR person, they were working on the policy manual for the employees. And it never got completed, and I don't know if, I'm sure there's a record somewhere, but we made a lot of changes, but the resolution to those changes has never been done that we're going to be making to the existing policy. So
Right.
I guess that's another question I have to ask for the city attorney while you're still here. Jerry, we made changes by motion, but they weren't done by resolution. So does that make them in effect, or do you have to have a resolution first?
No, you passed the manual by resolution, so you need to have a resolution to modify it.
Okay, but the changes that we made verbally here, because we did discuss some changes to it, and we did those by motion favorably, does that mean that as long as they're not passed by resolution, do they still take effect?
No, you need to put do a resolution, so I just would suggest that, you know,
We
you
do
can
have
put
one
one together, you can
resolution.
send it to me, but whatever's on the record as to changes, just go ahead and put that in, and then.
But we
just
weren't
look
done. I mean, that's just it. We weren't done. We had only
There were
gone,
two portions.
there's,
One portion was approved by resolution. The second portion you did not approve by resolution.
which ones did we approve by
The
resolution?
first part was the, I believe it was the work environment. the hostile,
I don't,
and the second part had to do with FRS, and that's the one you did not pass.
I don't
Because
recall
David
that.
brought it to a meeting and you discussed it and didn't realize it had to be by resolution. The next meeting, he brought the resolution on both, passed the first and not the second. That was August the 12th.
okay, so
Well,
the
what we'll
FRS
do
one
is
did
we
not
can pull
pass.
those minutes and look and see what's done, what's been done by resolution, what hasn't. We can bring what hasn't back to the next meeting. And then with anything else that you guys want to change in the personnel handbook, and I'm sure David would be happy to work on that.
So what my concern is as you know, that when you make a change here, you gotta look 30 pages down the line, because something might conflict with that, you know, elbows connected to the shoulder bone and all that, and there were a lot of disconnects that over the years make perfect sense, but there are some big ambiguities there as well, and I'm just asking that if any major changes or decisions are gonna be made, that because we were in the middle of changing everything, that no one jump to conclusions in terms of the policy and start doing some weird stuff that may be ambivalent in favor of city manager, but not in what the council's direction would want to be. So I'm just asking that, you know, if there's something in there that says the city manager can do this, and then somewhere else it says the city manager can't do it, that you go to the labor attorney or come back to council to see if we can rectify that policy so that we can put it into a resolution, because those things do exist.
Right, well, 36 years in the federal government, I've had my fair share of policy and procedure and union contracts to know that every word has roots going way deep, and that you just can't go, this is good, let's sign it off.
Right,
Doesn't
right.
work that way. It needs a thorough review and very complete, just like you're saying. We talked about this for the last year. We've been working on this contract, working on these procedures for a couple of years. Did we get everything? Are all the possible items that were covered in here, did we take it from A all the way to Z? And is Z what we're going with, or did somebody drop something? So I'm aware of those things.
Okay, well, I'm sure you are. I just want to make sure
no,
that
no,
as
and
you're
that
going
would
through the
be-
process, that we have an opportunity to still, you know, revamp it. I just don't want to postpone it for another year. It just, we got stuck on stuck and we haven't
Right.
moved forward.
And this is where, in working with Kim very closely right now, a lot of, you know, what's the hottest fire that we have to deal with, and saying, here are the things that I'd like to look at and like to, you know, deal with. But at 24 hours right now, it's kind of like, okay, I can only touch so much, and the things that really, really have to be touched are getting touched, and a lot of other things are being added to the to-do list. And that is one of many items that have been brought up of, it's got to be fixed, because it's just a big pile of paper and Post-it notes and everything else that we need to bring together.
Well, in your free time, there's an email that I sent to the HR person and the city manager on May the 1st of 2019, and in it, it has a lot of my concerns, and that was just the iceberg tips.
Okay.
And I'm just asking you to please review those, because I had done some research on those with the other communities in the
Okay.
near vicinity, and they were also those connection things that just really need to be looked at, so.
Right. May 1st,
Yeah.
I will research the emails.
Okay.
And listen what she says, in your free time.
Yeah, in your
Yeah.
free time.
Yeah.
Like today, I just popped in the office and you don't work today. Well, I just thought I would, you know, stop by to clean my office and check.
So are you
email.
part-time or full-time?
Part-time?
Okay,
Yeah.
24 hours.
okay. Is part-time, does it go 24 or does it go to 32?
Well, we've got him at 24.
Okay, I'm just
I
wondering what
think
that,
anything over 30 is, is
full-time.
it 30?
We have employees that are 32 hours that are part-time.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just asking, if there's a rule, then they shouldn't be working 32 hours.
Yeah, I thought it was 30 but she said 35, so I'll.
35 is considered part-time.
Maybe, anyway.
We could have our human resources person check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
in my spare time, let me look into that.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So before we make a motion, I'll ask: is there any changes to the October 28th, November 13th, or November 18th council meeting minutes?
Yes, I was looking at the November, I think it was, hang on, C5. Let me just look at the dates here and make sure that I have the right one. I think it was November the 18th.
Okay. Special meeting.
Yeah.
So that's C8.
C8. Okay, yeah, on the November 18 one, on the front it says Boys and Girls Club. I was talking about the Boys and Girls. It says here that that I said that they are a for-profit. They are actually, no, it's a nonprofit.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that the only change?
That's the only one that I saw, and aside from that, would it be possible to list the employees that are here also in our minutes? I
Yes.
noticed that we're here, but they aren't.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other changes to any of those 3 council meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the said changes.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes?
Councilmember Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that should have been Deputy Mayor Spurlock. That's what's on my paper right now.
Okay. All right.
Have a unanimous motion.
That concludes the consent agenda. Item number 9, we have Corbett Alday. Here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant update. Corbett, welcome.
Thank you. Is this on?
It is. It's not very loud.
Corbett Alday with Guardian Community Resources, offices Dade City, Florida. Thank you, and thank you for having us. Real briefly, after some delays in the program, we have an exemption now finally from the state, so we can start spending admin money to go out and advertise for applicants and advertise for contractors. We are in the process of drafting those advertisements to get those over to the city next week. So they will go out as soon as the city wants to. It approves them and sends them out. They'll go to the paper, and the process will start.
Will
As
it
far
come
as-
to us or just to the city manager?
Different communities like to do it different ways. I prefer that the paper come here.
Here at the
Here.
to the council?
Yeah, right. There could be a designee, and that person receives the paper, and then it gets scanned to us, and we build the case files, and then we copy those back to the city
No,
for their
I'm
hard
talking about the
records.
application.
Applications will come here to City Hall, yes.
No, maybe I'm asking the wrong. I'm trying to ask you, before, you say you have the application, you're building the application to send out to the client?
The forms, correct.
Yes.
Forms.
So,
Is that
the
what you call them?
The forms.
The
Okay.
forms, okay. So, my question is, does that have to be approved by us here? Or you just gonna do it and send it to the city manager and the city manager will get them out?
The application form will follow the state requirements. It will follow their procedures, the state and the federal, in this case, state and
Okay.
federal requirements will already be incorporated into the forms. Now, if you want to take that step, you can
No,
have
I
the
don't, I don't. I
Okay.
just was asking the
That's-
process, that's all.
You know,
The
Corbett.
normal process is we produce the forms because they are tried and true, okay? Just like the last time we did a housing program. And we update them every year, every other year when they make changes. So the forms will all be ready to go, unless you want to look at them, okay?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't.
Well,
I
I'd
don't.
like to see them because, I mean, we're able to hand them out ourselves, are we not?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'd like to
I-
get a
I-
copy of a form in an email if that's possible. That way I can forward it to individuals. Because I have 2 residents that always ask me, I mean, every week I'm getting a phone call or an email or a Facebook or whatever, but they want to know about the status of those forms. But I recall at one point, Corbett, the last time that a housing CDBG was done, the holidays were upon us, and the council then had decided that because there was such a scheduling hectic time for people that it's kind of tough to get an application in this environment, or at least, you know, with Christmas. So there was like a 3-month advertising period or a 2-month advertising period so that everybody
It's
knew
usually
about it.
60 or 90 days. It's that you can, that's up to you, if you want to make it longer because of the holidays.
Well, it depends on when we advertise it, but I would like to see it for 90 days only because that way more people are aware of it. And how many times does it get advertised?
Once.
Just once, but we can
Once.
post it at
But
City
you can-
Hall,
You can,
right?
as
You can
much
take
as
it
you
to
would
the
like, but
churches.
you've got to put it in the paper at least once.
Okay.
Okay, but we could email the application to all the council if you wanted.
Okay,
whatever
if
you,
you're gonna
what,
give it
you
to
know,
one, you
just,
might as well give it
as
to
soon
all.
as we, do you want it to go to staff first and have them look at it first, or do
Sure.
you just, or,
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, that
Okay.
it go to them, you know.
okay, so we'll send it to staff first, and if they don't have any questions or problems, then we can send it out to all the council members, or you can, you know, Eric.
Very good.
Going through staff channels, so,
So if we
Good.
advertise it for, how long does it have to be in the paper? Just once?
once,
And then as soon as that hits, is that when the time starts
yes.
clicking? Okay, ticking, so
Time
then,
starts when it appears in the paper.
so we can go between 60 and 90 days. It could
You
be, or did you say 30 and 60? What was the time frame again?
Usually
60
it's
and 90.
60 or 90 days.
Okay.
60 or 90 days.
I mean, what does the council think? I mean, you all,
Is there any downside to waiting 90 days?
Just the work plans, just the grant work plans. The faster we can get to our pool of applicants and get started, the faster we can get under construction.
Have we ever
So-
not spent all the money?
No.
no, you
Right.
spent every
No.
penny.
So if they all get in so
No.
early, why would we wait the extra days?
Because the last time you did it for 90 days.
But did we need it? Were they in 6 days? and
Well, we don't
just-
know who, some people may apply that didn't hear about it
Yeah.
on the
You could-
61st day.
You could do it for 60 days, and if for some reason you didn't have enough applicants, you could extend it,
Right.
advertise an extension.
So can we
There you go.
hand
And
out?
all the council member could take the application and hand it out to anyone they want to in the city, okay?
Well, okay, so when
So-
someone submits a form and it's filled out, what if it's incomplete? Does the
There's a-
next person
there-
that came in get theirs and they get bumped up, or?
There's this date timestamp when it comes in the door. Then there's a completeness review when the period expires, when the period is done. Everybody's treated the same. So they're gone through as they were date time stamped. And completeness review, there's one completeness review, and then there's a cure letter. Okay, if it's not complete, you have that amount of time, everybody gets the cure letter, and you have that much time to respond back with the missing information, or you fall to the bottom of the list. Okay? And everyone is treated the same.
Okay.
Now, do we have to wait till the 90 days is up to give out the forms?
No, you
We
can give
can
it
give
out
them
from
out
the very
anytime.
first day. They can be copies here at City Hall for people to pick up, to walk in and pick up.
And they can turn it in the very day after the completion of that advertising period.
Okay. So
They
when
can
is this
turn them
going
in
to,
anytime during that period.
when is this going to start?
Next week,
Next week?
I would imagine next week, unless you have questions, unless staff has questions or changes in the application forms or the advertisement.
I don't.
I would
Well,
say-
I think, here we're going to be building brand-new homes for some people, and we're going to be remodeling $50,000-$60,000 for some individuals, but some people are going to end up with a $120,000 home,
Yeah.
from what I understand. So
Right.
I like the 90-day period, because we're talking about a lot of money, and this is going to serve the most poor of our community with the least ability typically to be able to come to City Hall and do things. A lot of these people don't have computers, they don't have ways of getting to know how to find out about this stuff, only through their churches. If they're sick, if they're out of town for the first month, if they're in a nursing home, they won't know about it, and I just think that 90 days is more appropriate. The money will get spent no matter what, but I recall the last time that we had people at the very last minute signing and had just heard about it through a neighbor's neighbor. And, I mean, we're building homes,
Yep.
and I don't think it's a willy-nilly thing, just 60 days. I prefer the 90-day. I just think it's more time for people to get ready and get all their ducks in a row.
Great.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't mind 90 days. That's
Yeah,
fine with
aside
me.
from the fact that if the house isn't entirely theirs, if it's not owner occupied with a clear title, then they
They'll be
can't apply.
eliminated by the application.
They're
screening.
eliminated, so
Yeah.
this might give people the ability to go ahead and get a clear title while they're waiting for the application to come in. They might be in the process.
Is there a
Seems like
maximum
few.
amount of time? Is there any risk of running out of time?
Yes, you have work plans you have to comply with. We're already a little behind
Mhm.
because of all the changes in staff and redoing forms and things.
And when is that
Meeting-
cutoff?
We're about 90 days behind now.
But the deadline for the grant completion is 2022.
This was signed early 2019. And so you have 2 years from that date. So to finish everything, complete
22.
houses, okay? So that would be early 2021, okay? So you have all of next year.
So you have to build complete homes in
Part
that
of
time
it.
frame.
Well, they're not gonna all be complete
Right, but
homes.
some of them will
There'll
be.
be a few that'll need to be replaced if they're qualified.
Yeah.
because they're not gonna be worth fixing.
If we're
Right.
gonna do it in less than 90 days, then I would expect that we should at least advertise it twice. You know, I really
That's-
want the word to get out there. So if that's a compromise where the grant pays for the advertising anyway,
Yes.
so why not go ahead and just pay for another ad? What if it's a
Absolutely.
local newspaper, right?
Right.
So advertise it twice, do it for 60 days. If for some reason we don't have all the applicants in, then extend it for another 30 days.
And I think you'll have applicants. What
If
I
you have
was,
people calling at the 11th hour saying, I'm still working on my application, or I was out of town, you know, you can just call us and say, we'll advertise an extension.
Yeah. Okay. Is anybody opposed to that plan?
no.
Do we need a motion for that plan?
Do you, Corbett?
No, I just need your consensus.
consent,
I
okay.
I just need to know that you don't disagree with it, you know. that's
Thus
fine.
you have it, sir.
Okay.
We're good.
60 days, 2 advertisements.
Yep.
Okay.
And so in regards to people when they submit, is it not true that, let's just say, you know, citizen A submits an application and it's incomplete, and then citizen B submits one that is complete, and they both would score equally when it comes down to the grading of them, you know? If A turned it in first, but yet it was incomplete, and B's was complete, would B,
Everybody will get a cure letter at the same time.
okay?
They'll all be reviewed for cure completeness after that period is expired and there's no more applications. They'll all be treated the same and they all get a cure letter. And if you don't submit your documentation for completeness, you fall to the bottom of the list.
So how long is the cure period?
It's a couple of weeks. We give them a couple of weeks.
So they're gonna
respond to-
submit their forms within the first 60 days.
This is the same exact way it was done last time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, just for the benefit of the audience, they submit their form in the
Sure.
first 60 days.
Yes.
All right, if it's incomplete, then you give them a cure letter for 2 more weeks. Okay, and after that, that's it.
And that's,
And then how long?
Every application will have been reviewed, every application will get a letter, and whatever was missing, and if there's nothing missing, then they still get a letter saying that, you know, your application is good. We're going forward with processing, and we'll let you know what the ranking is.
And then how long after that cure letter has gone out and you've got all your documentation, what's the time frame between that 60 days after the cure? What's the period there before you advertise or the inspections go to the home so that you can advertise for contractors?
The next step would be inspections of the top ranked 12 or 13 houses, because you've got to do 11. Your plan, this approved award plan for housing is 11 properties benefited.
Whether they're built brand
So
new
we
or
would
just
do-
rehabbed?
Right. So even if they only get $10,000 of a $15,000 roof, that still counts as one of the 11. And we would qualify, you go out and inspect probably 12 or 13 to have a couple of extras in case for some reason you don't spend all the money on those first 11 or someone falls out.
Now, do you think you're gonna be able to do all the construction all at once, or are you gonna do that in phases? Are
You
the
could probably
11
do it in
houses gonna
two
get done
I would
3,
say
3, and
2
3?
phases because of the availability of contractors right now. Everybody's busy, so contractors are hard to come by.
So when you advertise for the contractor, though, that's a 30-day, because that's our procurement. It has to follow our procurement, right?
Yes, you have a advertisement for contractor applications to pre-qualify contractors, and that will be advertised at the same time as the applicants.
Okay.
So the contractor will be filling out, providing a license, providing whether or not they are MBE or DBE and those kind of things to us in an application form. And we provide those forms too.
I'll get a copy of that, too, if you don't mind sending that to me
That's
as well.
fine.
Send it to everybody.
That's fine. I can do that.
Okay. What else you got for us, Corp?
The other thing that was asked about was the CDBG mitigation program, which is a brand-new one-time program. The federal government sometimes does special appropriations. And special appropriations for specific goals, okay? Neighborhood stabilization program was a 1 or 2 time special appropriation for buying out foreclosed homes, redeveloping them, and reselling them, rehabbing them, the glut of damaged REO foreclosed homes. This one is for mitigation, mostly for infrastructure. Right now, there's no application, there's no process yet, except for there's an action plan. It just came out. So, I can get you the address, I can email the address, the links. I could email the links to the city manager, and she can share them with all of you, okay? This has just come out, and I've just been reading it. It's mostly gonna be an infrastructure program, and they want big projects, and Avon Park zip code is a high priority designated area in the plan. So, the kinds of things that I envision, and I am just giving you my opinion, I do not have an application to base this upon yet. I only have this draft action plan, which has not been approved yet by HUD. You can go online and give your comments at this time on the action plan, because it is just a draft out for comment, okay? But you're looking at things like flood mitigation. Say you had a citywide stormwater retrofit master, you were gonna implement a stormwater utility, and you wanted to buy some land that's in low-lying areas, turn it into floodplain, and do a massive retrofit of the city. And you have to benefit 51% low and moderate income persons. So you have to benefit your low and moderate income areas, okay? That's one idea. Hardening critical infrastructure against wind damage. Generators is another activity for critical facilities, like a wastewater treatment plant or lift stations.
How about equipment, like crane trucks?
I don't know. I don't know if they do that or not. Usually equipment is fixed assets. So it's something that's not, it's only for the CDBG activity, and it's not, it's like City Hall. They won't put money into City Hall because City Hall does too many things, different things, okay? It might only be 10% this LMI benefit from City Hall, what their activities at City Hall. So, but you could say that a volunteer fire department in the low and moderate income neighborhood with a lot of fixed asset equipment is a benefit, is a mitigation benefit to that low and moderate income neighborhood, okay? So you build the building, buy the equipment, fire engine, and service equipment, the hoses and all that stuff.
Does this have anything to do with a local mitigation strategy?
The local mitigation strategies were heavily looked at in the process of planning. How much, they're not required, but they were looked at, and they will be a factor. So I'm guessing that the more that you can use, I'm guessing what they'll do is make it a scoring issue in the application process. The more you can show that you have a need for whatever it is, like that it's in your local mitigation strategy, the more likely you are to get funded. But that's my opinion. I haven't seen anything yet.
Well, there's a list in City Hall. It's a local mitigation strategy. It's a binder that's this thick. And it's the entire county LMS. And Avon Park is listed in there and scored by the local mitigation strategy board, or at least the committee. And they met once a month, and they talked about hurricane preparedness and flooding and this and that. And it was, the schools were involved, the college was involved, the cities were involved, all of those that have potential for hurricane shelters, retrofitting buildings to change out the glass in case you wanted to turn it into a hurricane shelter and stuff. But anyway, that list is, if it's going to be scored off of existing LMS elements, then the list already exists.
Well, you may want to start looking at that, and you may want to start thinking of other things that you would do if you had the money to do it, because you're in a high priority area. Not all of Highlands County is a high priority area. There's a tier 1 and a tier 2. There's what they're calling HUD priorities, and then there's state priorities. So HUD priorities would be first for funding competition. And Avon Park zip code is the only part of Highlands County that's tier 1. That as far as this plan that I'm looking at right now.
So it also includes county 33825, not
Yes.
just city.
So the county is a tier 2 priority, the rest of the county.
So could we use it to expand our water and sewer system? If it was into an area that was at least 50% low to medium?
If it's a drainage, isn't
We have to have a mitigation component.
Mm-hmm.
So for
A retention
example,
Is it mitigating septic tanks?
right, for example, if you have septic tank problems in an area that's low and moderate, at least 50% low and moderate income,
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole city of I think the whole city of Avon Park is 50% low to moderate income. I think
Not in
because we get
elements.
CRA grants, commercial grants. So I think the whole city might be 51% LMI. So yes, right now I'd be going online and I'd be making the comment that we want to see septic to sewer as a mitigation because of Florida water quality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that, you may want to do.
So could the county apply and the city?
Right now, that's the way I understand it. The plan is written that units of counties and local governments, and general units of local government. So, and they would have to be for the city to be able to, unless they required the counties to apply on your behalf. I don't know.
So it wouldn't be a competing thing against the county and the city if both applied?
They would be applying to the state
Uh-huh.
in the second tier. They would not be competing with you. You'd be competing with the other tier ones
For HUD?
for HUD funding,
Okay.
correct?
Yep. Okay.
So depending on how they do that, how they structure it, you could be your own applicant.
Yeah.
You could be running your own grant program. You could be building that fire station, or you could be building a shelter, or you could be doing a stormwater flood control retrofit program, or septic to sewer. If there's a mitigation component there, we got to show we're mitigating damages. Okay.
Mhm.
For example, an old sewer system that overflows, okay, because of I&I, infiltration and inflow. And I've seen those done as mitigation projects, going in and line bursting all those lines to cut out
Mhm.
all that inflow when it floods. Okay, when it really rains, cutting out that infiltration inflow. So that's something I would like to see. It is mostly going to be for infrastructure. I don't see anything in it about housing.
Okay.
So and they said they want big projects.
So this is money trying to find a project rather than a project trying to find money.
That is correct. That is correct.
So the first thing you would suggest is looking at that LMS list and seeing what's on there?
See, I would start brainstorming now.
Because, I mean, I know that all city residents are on our sewer. We don't have septic tanks inside the city.
We do.
Do we? How
Yeah.
many do we have? Just like one neighborhood or one street? Do you have it?
Yeah.
You're on
Warren,
septic?
if we want to make comments, have to come up.
So when that happens, just a question, we've had grants in the past that paid for people to get sewer, but then it didn't force those individuals to annex in because it was separate from, it wasn't an annexation covenant that was required in order for them to get the funding. Would that be an issue here, that if we were to be providing sewer through this grant, would they be demanded to have a covenant?
If the city is applying, and there's no application yet, so I can't say, but if the city is applying, that it may be that you need to be in the city limits. It may not be because you're the utility of the area.
Mhm.
Okay, there's no competing utility. So it may be that with the county's consent, you could apply to go outside the city because you provide the utilities. I do not know.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
So
Oh.
those are
What they're
questions?
gonna do.
Go ahead,
Right.
sorry.
I was just looking at it as a possible opportunity to go ahead and take care of a lot of the sewer problems that we've been having. We've had a lot of requests especially in Avon Park Lakes. I don't know if that qualifies.
Yeah,
And
but
that
they're
redwood,
not in the
that
city.
red-
Yeah.
Whatever that little area is.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have had people request, you
And
know.
it's something that realistically we're not going to fund. You know, the city's not going to come up with $600,000 in 1 year. They might do it over the course of 10 years or 20 years, but this way it might just be able to leapfrog.
I mean,
into
if the
that.
county, if we were able to hook them up because we're the only ones with the utility, I just go back to the whole covenant thing. If people have a sewer problem, with
Mhm.
a septic, but they don't want to annex in,
Yeah.
are we supposed to just, that's okay, or, can,
That's up to you. That's a policy
is
question.
it up, it's a policy question for the
That's up
state,
to
not
you,
for
yeah.
us?
As far as the regular CDBG program, they would have to be in the city
Yeah.
limits, or the county would have to apply.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the county would come to you, just like they
Mhm.
did with Lake Placid, with the water system that was outside. It goes out, and Lake Blue is outside of the town limits. And they wanted to retrofit that water, replace all those asbestos cement water mains.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to the county and said, will you apply to do this? And we'll pay for the engineering, and we'll pay Corbett, the grants administrator. We'll do everything else. Will you be the applicant?
Yeah.
And they said yes.
Now,
And-
Corbin, let me ask you a question. It's just one project? You couldn't combine the projects together?
I
Or
don't see a
just-
limit on projects.
Oh.
I don't see a limit on projects, so I don't see any reason not to apply for everything.
Okay. And we don't know what staff, what deficiencies staff might see at this point. We don't have their to-do list, so.
Just think in terms of mitigation. If you're gonna do sewer, then you've gotta be mitigating a problem that you can show with septic tanks that don't work when it rains with the health department. You get with your Department of Health. In other words, you've got to generate some kind of data.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You've gotta show some mitigation.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. That concludes item number 9. Next up, we have Central Florida Regional Planning, Ordinance 3-19, 2019, 4-2019, and 5-2019.
I'll go
Second
ahead and
reading.
read the first short title. It's an ordinance amending the future land use map of the city of Avon Park, Florida, amending a total of 21 parcels of land totaling approximately 73.17 acres, generally located along the US 27 corridor in Avon Park, Florida, from the future land use of city unassigned to city highway commercial, transmitting said amendment to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for a finding of compliance, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Jeff, you want to give us a brief overview on this again?
Yes, sir. Jeff Schmucker, Central Florida Regional Planning Council. Yes, this is the second reading of the first ordinance. I'm going to give you the overview of 03, 2019 and 04, 2019. Next slide. So this is a city-initiated amendment to the, there we go, city's future land use map, or future land use map and zoning map. This is approximately 73 acres of land. These are properties that are along the US 27 corridor. These are properties that were annexed into the city over the last 3 to 5 years, I would say. At that time, when they came into the city, they weren't assigned a future land use or a zoning. So the city is taking the approach now to go ahead and assign the future land use and the zoning to these properties. Those designations would be city highway commercial, future land use, and city general commercial C2. Next slide. This is a map which is in your package, circling the properties that are subject to the amendments, both future land use and zoning. Next slide. And just briefly, the future land use designation, highway commercial supports commercial development, promotes efficient use of infrastructure, supports high and low intensity retail, professional offices, financial institutions, restaurants, as well as residential, single family and multifamily at a residential density up to 16 dwelling units per acre. Under the proposed zoning of general commercial, this would allow for most of the uses that you see along the C2 corridor now, or the US 27 corridor, general retail, office professional uses, personal service activities, highway commercial, and again, single family and multi-family residential. Briefly, just to let you know, and we talked about this last time, the existing uses on these properties, there's a list of them. Churches, auto sales, service stations, gas stations. There's a club, lodge, hotel, motel, again, general retail, recreation, amusement center, and then open storage and vehicle rental, and some vacant land. The question came up last time, what is the property today, the land use and the zoning? Is it compatible with what we're going to in the city? The answer is yes. So all of the permissions that the folks of these properties, what they have now, this would be the equivalent future land use and zoning in the city. So with that, we'll answer any questions that you all might have on that.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff? Seeing none, we'll do these one at a time. First up, we need a motion for ordinance 03-2019.
I move to adopt ordinance number 0319 on the second reading.
Second.
Are you good to go? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
voting unanimous.
Need a motion for 04-2019.
This is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Avon Park, Florida, amending a total of 21 parcels of land totaling approximately 73.17 acres, generally located along the US 27 corridor in Avon Park, Florida, from a zoning of city unassigned to the city general commercial C-2, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to adopt 04- 2019. This is second reading as well, on the second reading.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Vote unanimous.
Thank you. Next up, we have ordinance 5-2019.
It's an ordinance of the City of Avon Park, Florida, amending the Avon Park Comprehensive Plan, revising the transportation element, intergovernmental coordination element, capital improvements element, and definitions for consistency with the Heartland Regional Transportation Planning Organization, long-range transportation plan, providing for transmission to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review and compliance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing an effective date.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to adopt ordinance number 0519 for the second reading.
Is there a
as well.
second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Jeff, did you have anything to say?
No, I was just going to give any overview if you had any questions. So
Got it.
I think this one's kind of more of a.
Is there any further
housekeeping
questions
item.
on this ordinance?
No.
Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Vote unanimous.
Thank you. That concludes item number 10. Item number 11, we have the annual contract renewal. Central Florida Regional Planning.
I've reviewed this, and it's ready to go.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Jeff on this, or?
Or is there
I
any-
do. I have some questions. I know that you're aware that we've had some turnover at City Hall and stuff, and I'm just trying to figure out who's currently who does what. Because I know in the past, you all pretty much set up all the meetings, get in touch with all of the board members and all that, but if it's not city initiated, which it's really initiated through historical records, I mean, will there be any meetings or?
Yep, and I will give a lot of kudos to staff right now. We had a meeting, I don't know, about maybe a month and a half ago. We came down, sat down, and said, we know there's been a lot of turnover. What can we do to help you all out? We know there's departments that are getting phone calls. There's folks coming to desks that are asking questions. Where do I get this application? What's going on? What do I do? So we're currently fielding all of that information right now. Everything's going through code enforcement. But we take those phone calls. We take those communications. So everything right now is funneling through us, which is part of our contract. But what we'd like to do moving forward is to continue to build the capacity with staff as you all get new staff members. But essentially, we're here to serve as your planning zone. So anything that's related that we can handle, we do that. We know that there were some questions as the last person had left. Who was handling some of the things with building permits and those things. We're trying to bridge that connection again with Highlands County Building Department. We don't know exactly what the previous person was doing, so we're not really making it up on the fly, but we're trying to make that connection a little bit cleaner. So the developers and those folks that are calling us, how do we get this sign off?
So if I want a fence in my backyard, which I'm not a developer, who do I go to?
If you're coming to the city, you're contacting Marnita.
Okay.
And if she can answer the question, she does. If she can't,
All right.
she sends it directly to us.
So we can have that permit in 5 minutes.
Yep, sometimes it's as quick as that. Other times, if I'm out of the office, maybe it's a few days. But yeah, I mean, they happen quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, but
So
no
if you-
longer than a few days. I mean, I would hate to see permits waiting for a week or 2 weeks.
If you need like a site plan review,
Well, site plans are different. They've always done those, but
Yeah.
like
and
fence.
how long does that take right now?
For like a site plan, like if somebody's
A
coming
month?
into, well, it depends on the site. So I mean, if you're talking about someone who's just putting a house on a site, I mean, we've been going through a number of those recently. 3 to 4 days, depending on just getting to it and getting everything scanned, signed, and getting it back over to the building department. And yeah,
Okay.
So with you doing all this work, the city typically has to charge for some of these items. So how does that work out? If they're not doing the review, you still are, but we still collect the fee?
so anything, if you're done, anything that would be a pass-through, like with the site plan reviews and all that, that'd be completely separate. So, I mean, right now, any questions, essentially what we're doing is we're acting as day-to-day planning staff at the same time. And that's just essentially to make sure that everything keeps running smoothly, so everyone's on the same page, and that nothing gets left behind. I mean, that doesn't do any justice for anyone. I mean, we could sit back and say, well, really, you all need to handle that.
Yeah.
But if we do that, things start to fall apart. I mean, it's advantageous for all of us to just be part of the team and keep it going.
We want it to get done as quickly as possible.
Right. So we haven't really had a situation at this point yet where we've had additional fees that would need to be collected. If a site plan were to come in, yes, absolutely. That would be one of those situations where we've got the pass-through fee ordinance now.
So other than that, those additional fees, this is just part of your normal contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any further questions for Jeff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the annual contract with Central Florida Regional Planning Council.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Vote unanimous.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate being here.
Thank you, Jeff.
Happy
Appreciate it.
holidays to
Good.
you.
Next up, item number 12, we have vehicles and utility trailer purchase approval. Ronnie Jones.
Council members, in your packets, we have 3 separate pieces of equipment that have already gone through the review process by you during a work session and approved in our fiscal budget. The first one being the mechanics truck in the amount of $154,199.74. This is a crane truck that's
Jeff.
used out in the field. The vast majority of the cost for this vehicle is the crane itself. The utility bed, the structural members that have to be implemented in order to support something like this.
Can you pull that mic down a little closer to you?
Oh, I'm sorry,
I can't
sorry.
hear where you say.
Is this better? Can you hear me?
Very
No.
little, but got
No.
Go ahead.
Just eat it.
The microphones aren't turned up very high tonight.
Okay. So we're just looking for approval for the crane truck for this position in order to do the service work out in the field.
Let me ask you, is this crane truck the same one that was going to be used for the lift station at the? No? But
No.
is it, does it have the same capacity?
No, it will not. This is a smaller crane.
You're talking about one truck costing $100 and some odd $1,000.
Believe it or not, yes, sir, for
No.
the body and for the crane and for the structural member, the hydraulic outriggers that have to go out, be added to it to support it. The last thing you want to do is pick up something with a crane and have the truck turn over. So
Do
there's
we
a lot-
not have anything right now?
No.
So what have we been doing?
Very basic maintenance, change a tire, fix a hose, things like that. A lot of times we have to have the vehicle towed because we're just simply not able to do some of the work out of the
So
field.
I asked this question last time you weren't here, but how frequently does our stuff break down?
Every day.
So we have big, huge trucks breaking down every day.
Almost every day, we get a call from a driver for a garbage truck that's broke down. And we have to go out there and assess what the issue is and fix it in the field as best we can, or we have to tow it back and repair it there.
So are these old pieces of equipment that they're backup equipment? Because I mean, we just bought a new garbage truck. We have a relatively new one. Are these
Well, we
faltering?
bought a clam truck. That's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about the rear pack loader, the large 40-ton trucks, but they're used every single day.
How many
So-
times do you have to tow one in? I'm not talking about go out and fix something on the truck, but to tow it in?
I'll have to get you an answer
Yeah, I
on
need
that.
more data before I can vote on something like this. I mean, and a question I would ask you is, why do we need mirrors on a truck that automatically defrost? Why do we need 2 diesel tanks? I mean, do we go that far that we have to have 2 diesel tanks? I mean,
No, sir. This particular vehicle, this was their base model truck.
Yeah, I
And
see
a-
what it is. It's
And a
it's
lot of stuff's been
Cadillac of
added to what they
it is.
consider a
Yeah.
base vehicle these days.
Yeah, I
I agree
studied
with
this.
you. There's a lot of stuff that I read through there and thought, we don't need this, we don't need this, but the manufacturer, that's their base vehicle.
Yeah, well, I just questioned 2 diesel tanks on the truck. That's very questionable to me. And I look at all these trucks you're asking for here, they're all Allison diesel, top of the line diesel engines. How many vehicles do we have out there in the F-100, the F-250s? How many of those trucks are diesel?
I'll have to get you the answer. I don't have it
Yeah,
off the
I
top
wish
of
you
my head.
would, because when I'm looking at the serial numbers here, they don't appear to be any of them diesel, but they may be.
This is for a crane truck, Stanley.
Well,
This is not some little F-150,
I
you
understand
realize.
what it's for, I'm not denying that it's not a crane truck, but the need is what I'm questioning for $180,000 for
It's
one vehicle.
It's $154,000.
Yeah, it's got
Yeah.
everything on it from soup to nuts. It'll serve you that if you want it.
Yeah, well,
What was the budgeted amount for that? I mean, you're saying that,
75,000, I believe.
For this truck, it was the 155,
No.
I believe it was.
Stanley, do you have any proof to justify what you're saying, or are you
I
just
mean,
coming up with numbers?
Council
Look,
members,
look.
this quote that I'm bringing to you tonight is the same quote that I
Right.
provided to you during the work session. And
Exactly.
it's the same quote you had during the approval of the budget. Nothing's changed.
When we debated this on the budget, the words that Ronnie used was, well, give me a truck. Mine is ready. That's the truck he asked for. It was ready. And it was 70-something thousand in the
For a
budget.
crane truck.
Huh?
For this crane truck, it was 70,000.
We never said anything about a crane truck. We said truck. We didn't say crane truck, Gary.
Stanley, it's two different things.
I know it's two different things, but the crane truck was not in the budget.
it is, it's account number 6,400 out of the fleet maintenance account. I mean, we did approve it. Honestly, I missed it, because when we talked about a crane truck, we talked about, putting 40,000 aside, and then if we had an emergency, we had it to get a loaner and then maybe amortize something, right? That we
Right, we had
didn't
two
budget that.
crane, right, we had
Right.
two. One was for the lift stations.
Okay, so that one we just didn't do, and this is separate. This is a different piece of
Correct.
equipment. All right. And we did budget 175 for that, so, and you based your estimate off of these current numbers here.
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying that it falls, or that we have equipment that goes bad every day? What are we doing with it? Do we just have junk? I
No,
mean,
you
I
got-
hate to say we have junk, but I mean, what's making our equipment falter on a daily basis? Do our fire trucks go through the same issue as well? I
Well,
mean,
the
is
fire
maintenance?
trucks don't run as many days and hours as our equipment does. It runs every single day from 6 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the evening. It never shuts off.
But are they meant to do that? I mean, why are they doing that?
Well,
I mean,
they are meant to do this, but, they're machines. They're going to break down. Hydraulic hoses break. You have human error where people put something into the top of it and it doesn't quite fit, and they go to close it and it grabs a hose and snaps it. I mean, these things happen every single day.
well, how much of it is human error?
Not a lot of it, believe it or not. A lot of it is just breaking down. We'll have air brakes that go out, tires that come apart. I mean, they're retreads, and they only go so far before they separate. and have
Ronnie,
to
will
be
this truck
replaced.
fix the hydraulic hose that goes out?
Sir?
Will this truck fix the hydraulic hose that goes out?
He'll have the ability to have the
You-
equipment on there to where
To
he
take
can
it off
fix
and
it.
take it, to get it fixed, or what?
Well, right now, he has to drive out there, find out what's broken,
Right,
and if it's a hose, figure out the length of it, go back,
right.
make up the hose and the fitting, go back into the field, take
Correct.
it off and fix it. So this way, he'll have everything he needs on the truck. He can assess what's broken, and 9 times out of 10, get it fixed and get it back on the road without having to go back and forth several times.
So in terms of those repairs, of the 9 out of 10, are they smaller jobs that are easily fixable, and then you've got larger jobs where you still have to have it towed somewhere? I'm just curious to that.
The majority of them are smaller jobs, but it's when you do have one that he does need to move that vehicle or lift it in some sort of way, he just simply doesn't have the equipment to do it, and it's not safe.
Okay, so in the past, did we have local businesses that assisted in hauling our equipment for us or towing
We've had
it?
to have it towed to Big T or other places, yes, to get it fixed.
Okay, so how is this going to affect the businesses that support us through their taxes? I want to know, are we taking business away from the private sector by buying this equipment?
What's cheaper for the taxpayer? How about that?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. What's cheaper for the taxpayer, but I also want to look out for the businesses that hire the people that support the tax base that help us pay the taxes. So I think it's a fine line that we have to draw in terms of being able to show that we support the community that supports us.
Right.
I'm not saying take business and, just get the thing that we can and keep hiring more people and just keep on doing our own thing. I do like to see a relationship with our business partners out there, and I think that's really important.
Agreed.
So, at what point are we going to say we don't need our local businesses and we're self-sustaining here?
You won't be.
9 out of 10 times is what you're saying with this.
for the repairs. I'm not talking about the individual dealers or,
Okay.
repair centers. We still buy parts, we still buy tires, so we still have that
And
relationship.
these are all local?
These are all local individuals.
And I hope that we remain that way. I just don't
Mhm.
want to take any business away from our local vendors that have inventory, staff, pay taxes, pay fire assessment, pay everything to make sure that those people are employed and that, all the services that we get are available to us when we need them. I just want to make sure that we don't forget that. If we don't have our businesses, we don't have our community support.
Right.
Where would we go to find the information out? I was given the information, Mr. Mayor, when I came on the council, that Macklin did our repairs for those trucks, which he no longer does, and we spent right around $100,000 for that.
But they also did mechanic. They had a
No.
mechanic that did work. I mean, we didn't have a mechanic at the time, so they were our default.
Well, that's what I'm
Mechanic.
saying. If we spent that kind of money there, so now we're talking about spending this kind of money for one truck,
Oh, I don't-
plus a mechanic, plus blah, 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 blah. Are we saving the taxpayer any money? You say we gotta think about them. I wonder, are we doing that?
Ask the question, Stanley.
Yeah, I'm answering it. I mean, I'm trying to answer it. I mean, are we? I don't know. It don't look like we are.
Sounds to me like you just want to believe what you want to believe, personally. But,
Well,
you know.
I don't
mean, we
believe
could-
we
we
need to
could-
buy top-of-the-line diesel motors. I can tell you that.
If
you're
you want them to
right.
last, you do. That's how it works. You
Yeah,
buy the
okay,
best
well,
equipment.
Well,
You get the best
I mean,
result. But
that thing will run for 40 forever.
yeah, okay. So I think what the councilman wants is more or less what we've spent on something that could have been avoided, whether that be through time or having to pay some other company to do it, to see how many years is it realistically going to take to justify the cost of this truck, right? Is that what you're after, Stanley?
No, because I'm looking right here. I'm looking at an F-150 that we bought
If
in
you want to have
2005.
conversation, please step outside.
Another 150 in 14, a F-100 in 2001. I go right on down the list. They're still running. Those are gas trucks.
It's not a crane truck, Stanley.
I understand it's not a crane truck. We got a crane truck though.
We don't have this one. We don't have one that do this job. That's
Yeah,
what
I
that's
ain't
what the
gonna-
infrastructure director just literally told you. I mean,
I understand. I understand what you said.
But the motion that he's looking for us to do is to purchase vehicles and a utility trailer. So what Stanley's talking about is the vehicles. Let me just see here. You're talking about buying a 100 and, what was it again?
54,000.
Right, so there's a bunch of information under this one heading, under this agenda item, and I think that that's where the confusion may
Yeah,
be.
mine doesn't say one truck. Mine's talking about several trucks.
Yeah, purchase of vehicles and utility trailer. So the vehicle is actually this crane truck,
One truck,
How many more
which
do
is
you
the
want to buy,
crane
Ronnie?
truck.
one crane truck and one F-250. That's
Okay.
it.
Are they all diesel engines? Allison diesels?
Let me look into the F-250. I
They
don't think
are.
it.
Allison makes transmissions there, Stanley.
Yeah, it's also
Duramax
a
diesel
diesel. It's
engine.
also a diesel.
Yeah.
Okay, so the purchase is for one F-250, a crane truck, and the trailer, right?
That's it.
All right, so in the budget, you had a crane service truck. It didn't say vehicles or trailer. So that's where I'm looking at, you've got money surplus left over, so what you're asking for is for us to go ahead and tag that money so that you can do this purchase of the F-250 and the utility trailer.
Those were all in there initially, yes.
They weren't in the budget. The budget said machinery and equipment, crane service truck was the only, I still have my budget. I brought them all with me.
Okay. Because I know I turned it in to Mr. Helms. I turned every single thing you're looking at tonight into him.
Okay,
And had
'cause
everything
this was,
broken down. So I'm
this was the,
sorry.
and I'm not trying to henpeck on you or anything. This is the only time, by the way, that I can ask questions because it's a public forum. So,
You can
I
ask
had,
questions anytime you want, Maria. You can
Well-
send an email to staff and they'll get your question answered.
well,
Anybody can. You can go to City Hall and get your question answered.
like I said, I like to do it in a public setting because that way no one can claim that I meddled.
That's fine.
Okay,
But
so,
you just said you
point of
couldn't,
order.
so, okay. Point of order?
Yeah, point of order.
It's
I'm
germane to the
talking, I'm
conversation.
asking questions. You don't
Go
have to
ahead and ask the
interrupt me.
question.
I have your permission?
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so I had asked about the assets that we had in terms of trucks. So you're getting another truck. Is it going to be replacing an existing, this F-250? Is it replacing another one? Because that was not in the budget information that we were provided when we approved the budget.
Okay.
So is it replacing an existing diesel, this F-250, or is it a brand-new truck to add to the fleet?
It's a brand-new truck to add to the fleet. The vehicle that the mechanic is using now, I also want to put back into the fleet, rather than buying two more vehicles, two new vehicles.
Okay, so this is a mechanic's pickup truck, this
No, no, no.
F-250.
Right now, he's driving one of the old water and sewer F-250 service
Okay.
trucks. So rather than buying multiple F-250s at the cost of the taxpayer, I want to take his vehicle, if you approve his crane truck tonight, and roll it back into the water and sewer to give them another vehicle, in addition to the new one that I'm asking for tonight, which will give them two vehicles that they need.
Okay, so we have a bunch of trucks. Are any of these take-home vehicles? Is this gonna be a take-home vehicle, this F-250?
Only the take-home vehicles are the on-call folks.
Okay.
I just have a couple of short questions for you, Ronnie, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind. But I noticed on all the vehicles under the contract, it shows them as estimated annual payments. Is that what we're planning on doing, is making annual payments for these costs? Like,
Jim, I'm sorry, I don't have in front of me what you're looking at.
well, like on the truck, the crane we're talking about, it says estimated annual payments for 60 months paid in advance, $34,534.40. Is that what the city's gonna do, is make annual payments on these trucks, or we're gonna pay one lump sum?
That, I guess, would be up to the council.
Because obviously if we're making annual payments, then I would assume we're making interest, paying interest on them. The other question I have is another simple one, probably you can
Okay.
answer real easy, is I noticed that besides the first crane truck, all the rest of them are Fords. Is there any reason why we go with the Ford instead of maybe going to a local dealer that has a different brand? Is there a reason why we continue to use Fords, or?
No, can I go back to your original question though?
Please.
Okay, this, in the estimate that Alan J. provided,
Mm-hmm.
that was just an estimated payment if the city chose to finance the vehicle,
Okay.
just for information only.
Okay,
It was not a directive
that's
for
what I
how
sort
we're
of
gonna
thought.
proceed.
Okay,
Now, as far as the Ford versus a Chevrolet, I don't have a preference either way. This was just state contract
Okay.
cost.
because I know I believe we have two other dealers in town that aren't Ford, and I'm not saying anything bad against Ford from what I've been told by most people, because I'm not very mechanically specified, is that Fords will probably make the best truck, but that doesn't mean that we also shouldn't give our business to our local businesses too. So I just have questions of whether we should look at those other options or not, unless somebody's a mechanic and says Ford's the way to go.
Okay.
Is there a reason we're buying four-wheel drive on that truck?
For the F-250?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, because when you have water and sewer calls, sometimes you have to get off-road with them. You're also trailering equipment out over ground. Two-wheel drive would not
Okay.
work.
All right, so we need the truck, we need the trailer, and we need the crane truck. I am like I mentioned just 15 minutes ago, I like to look at our local, we do have a local vendor preference. So I know that this is a piggyback, it looks like, from L&J, and I think he's a great dealership. But I would also like to look and see whether or not we can get comparable things from our City of Avon Park tax-paying businesses. So if you don't mind just holding off on the F-250, I would greatly appreciate it. It's up to the sentiment of the rest of the council.
I agree with
I'm
that.
okay with the crane truck and the trailer that goes with it.
Me too.
How much is the trailer?
The trailer is 20,000,
Actually, it's less than that. It's 16,100.
16,100,
Yeah.
okay. Cash
Okay.
advance, okay. So, and we have the funding there. You're saying that it's 175, so all of that equates to falling within that budget line item.
I'm fine with both of those decisions.
Yeah, but if we can just hold off on the truck, if you don't mind, and just take a peek at what we have locally, and, let's see if we can make it competitive, following, of course, our procurement policy.
Okay.
Let me ask you one question.
Yes,
So we're just gonna get one F-250?
We're going
No.
to postpone that at the
Just get the
request
crane.
of council.
Yeah, we're gonna hold off until he just looks around a little bit more. And like I said, this by no means,
No.
begrudges any other dealership outside of the city of
No.
Avon Park. I think we should owe it to all of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have people that live in our city that actually work there, so, but we can make it a little more competitive.
Does anyone care to make a motion to that effect?
Okay, I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the crane truck purchase with trailer and postpone the F-250 until further bids are acquired.
I'll second that, please.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Spurlock,
No.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. Item number 13, code enforcement work schedule. Marnita?
Can,
Whoever wants to take it.
Can I just step back for a second with regard to the purchasing manual? The question arose at one point as to whether things that were in the budget as line items were considered approved when they were put in the budget. And I just wanted to point out that the purchasing manual requires that they still get your approval if they're over the approval amounts.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Jerry.
can I just wanted to ask if we could move ahead a little bit to F19 and 20 so that Ronnie's got a long ride home and he can
Okay.
finish up his part.
All right.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Item number 19. This was by Councilwoman Sutherland.
Yes. This
Go
is
ahead.
just the lowdown on that, so
Okay. Council members, in your packet, you'll see a outline of what you have approved for the US 27 Utilities North extension. What you have approved, what has been spent to date, what funding you have available, and what expenditures have all been paid. Has any of you, do any of you at this point have any questions so far?
I
Of the
had a
information that was
question
submitted?
regarding the pending agreement for the FDEP. Was that the one that was, we're not sure if it's gonna be 100% or 80/20?
No, ma'am, this is the one that they have already sent us an approval letter, said we could incur costs. We just can't bill the state yet until we have a signed agreement. They were waiting on a scope of work that I have already drafted. It's been sent to the state. It's circulating now with the
Isn't it the same
contract.
scope as the first FDEO grant?
It's different because it was the way it was written. So I wrote them the scope. They seemed happy with it. And then, like I said, it's been attached to the contract and it's making its way through the rounds. So hopefully we'll have it very soon.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I recommend that we spend the money that we've already received from the DEO grant. And then by the time those funds are expired, we'll have our contract signed and ready from DEP for the $720,000.
So when we budgeted this project, it was assuming that there were gonna be no other cost overruns. The 577,000 current cost that the city has, does that does include the total expenditures paid out to date, does it not?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a balance of 400 or so thousand, I'm sorry, 477,000 so far as current costs, right?
Correct. So the
Okay.
577, Maria, would include everything that's been spent to date.
Okay,
Okay, so those are your three funding sources, your own infrastructure fund and 2 grants to pay for it all. So to date, we've spent a little over $100,000, 101,560. And of that $101,000, about half of that, plus whatever invoices we receive from Cool and Cobb and the contractor during the month of December, I am going to bill to the DEO the first week of January as part of their quarterly submittals. So we will start getting funding back from the state from funds that we've already paid out.
On the total approved expenditures to date, the 2 million plus, has anything been added to that since the original approval?
The only thing that's been added since the original approval, and I indicated this in my letter to you, was the change order
Yes.
for $63,779.77.
All right. But you're saying that totally we've only spent 101,560.
Correct.
Out of all
Out of the
those funds.
$2.2 million project, we've only spent a little over $100,000.
Okay, thank you.
so could we get, when you start getting the reimbursements and stuff, or when that other grant kicks in, do you have I know that we've got CEI going on for that, that's covered by the grant, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't covered in the first one, but it'll be covered in the second one?
It'll be covered in the first one. because that was one of the requirements from the DEO, is that we had to have a separate engineering firm
So,
oversee the project in the
so
field.
if it's covered in the first one, that means that money was taken away from construction, because in the original application, it had design and engineering, but it didn't have E CEI.
But they made it a requirement as part of the contract, so I don't see why we couldn't bill them for that.
But what I'm saying is you had a set amount of dollars, and if that set amount of dollars is gonna be allocated portion to CEI, that means that you'll have less money for construction, because the CEI is how much?
72,000.
Yeah, so that 72,000 is gonna end up being on the city, right? That's factored into this, because, or
Either
the
the-
construction part of it.
Right, we're going to move, we will bill either DEO or DEP for everything that we are doing as much as we possibly can and utilize every penny of it. The city is still going to be paying $500 some odd thousand toward this project. So whether it's $72,000 to Cool and Cobb, $50,000 for easements and property, at some point, we're on the hook for $500 and some thousand.
So where are we in the project in terms of percentage?
Probably in the neighborhood of about 30%
Okay.
Completed?
to date,
Yeah,
it's
to
about
date,
30%.
On a related topic, the new core agreement for domestic wastewater and potable water is completed, and they're, as far as I know, they're passing it around, having it signed, and we should be back next month for you to look at.
Good.
Very good.
Council, next month, I'll be bringing to you an agreement from Kimley Horn to do their industrial wastewater review to assist us with our agreement. I got
That'll
their-
be the second part. We have to do an industrial wastewater agreement with them on, for their industrial component.
Okay.
Right, good job.
Any questions on the progress schedule at all? No?
Nope.
Currently at around 30%. Anybody have any questions on the cost or anything?
No.
No, thank you. I really wanted to see that, and you concised it very
Yeah.
well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes item number 19. Item number 20. Inventory of current staff vehicles versus suggested needs. Maria, again, that's you.
That was based off of a meeting that we had at our last meeting. We were talking about vehicles and stuff, and I just wanted to know the inventory that we currently have and the positions included with them. So, this doesn't have positions, it just says the truck, it doesn't say what it's for, it just says the department. So, we have a lot of vehicles here between streets and sanitation, but then also a lot of things were thrown in here, like generators, which I really have, that's more of the Stanley along the lines of, but,
Well, that was my fault because.
no, that's okay. I mean, it's
asked
good,
them
it's good to know what it
for a
is.
separate, yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is if there's going to be a need for trucks, I see one here from 2001, an F-150, what do we use that one for? I mean, I know that it still runs and a lot of trucks can run in excess of 200,000 miles, but, I'd like to know at what point we need to start looking at replacing some equipment that will likely be in the budget if that's the case. I like looking at those things now so that we can start projecting. Budget's right around the corner.
Yep.
So, anyway, I just,
The Ford dump truck, 1997, so
yeah,
that's,
So couldn't we have staff give us like a 5-year look on that?
and at what point, I know that we have a mechanic, but is the mechanic costing us more money in terms of fixing these old pieces of equipment versus getting a new one? I mean,
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Right. right. The CIP mandated that we're supposed to be rotating our vehicles out on a 5-year basis. And as you can see from this sheet, that hasn't been done. We're 10 years, 12, 15 years, 18 years. So we're getting our money's worth out of the vehicles and the equipment that we do have.
Is there a drone? Do we have a drone?
We have one. I can't weaponize it, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So in regards to the equipment also, our landscape equipment, our mowers and that sort of stuff, are those in decent shape, or are they constantly being repaired and blades being, are we okay with that?
They are being maintained pretty well, and we just acquired a few newer ones earlier this year. to replace some of the old ones that were completely worn out and unusable. We were actually robbing parts off of them. So right now, we're okay with mowers.
Okay, now, I know there were a lot of things on this agenda, Kim, that you just bumped up, for the sake of Ronnie not having to leave so late from here, but some of these issues that are on here in regard to some of our infrastructure buildings do necessitate your input, so, can you just come in an hour late tomorrow and just stay just a little bit longer till we get through this list?
Sure.
Because there are some things on here that I think need to be addressed. So I'm okay with the vehicles, but if you do have like a 5-year plan, that would be great. That way we know what to budget for this next fiscal year.
Anybody else have any questions
I
on
just
item
have
number 20?
One question there, Ronnie, and like I said, I'm no expert here, but over 20 of these vehicles are Ford pickup trucks, all the way from a Ranger up to 350. So who makes the decision on what brand of vehicle trucks we should buy? Is that a mechanic decision, your decision, or is it
State
just
contract decision.
state contract?
Yes,
In
sir.
other words, that's because that gives us the best price for a vehicle that size?
That's correct.
So that's basically where that comes from?
That's right.
Okay, so do we have an option to look at different brands from local vendors if we want to?
We can. That was one of the things that the
Yes.
council just discussed for the F-250. So we're going to go back and research
Okay,
that.
like I said, I've always been told, well, on TV commercials, Fords are the best, but I'm no truck expert, but I think there's other good trucks out there too. All right, thank you. That's all I got on the vehicles.
Does anybody else have anything else on item number 20?
Nope.
Okay. What was the other items, Maria, that you mentioned? that
Okay,
you wanted
we
to-
had, and I recall you being in most of these meetings when we talked about them, Ronnie, but for example,
Talking about item number 21?
yeah,
Okay.
there's just a lot of things in item 21, and I know that not all of them will have answers for tonight, but one in particular was the streets building off of Lake Avenue. We currently have a contract that we just ratified with the Church Service Center in October, and we're waiting to see what they're going to do with the building in terms of a giant shed or some kind of structure on there and stuff. But in the meantime, we have $298,000 sitting in insurance money for the old police building that we're not doing anything with. So it's my preference, and I think we discussed it at that meeting, that the Church Service Center actually occupy the old police building. Let's use the money from the insurance and fix it up and be done with that. And then use that old Yana building for the actual streets department, which will make it easier, at least it's closer to Main Street. I don't know if that's something feasible, but also the Lake Avenue property, which currently has the water tower on it, I mean, that building looks horrible.
And we're in the process
It's
of
in really
trying to
bad
get it
shape.
cleaned
So are
up.
we going to remodel that, or are we just going to move it someplace else? Because it's in the middle of a neighborhood. It's a mess.
We're short-staffed as it is right now, but we have been cleaning up that property, getting rid of everything that's there, and even the buildings, taking them down. They're just storage sheds and lean-tos, things like that. So my goal was to clean that property completely up, and if we wanted to turn it into a passive park, that would be great, but not to put any kind of structure there.
Not what, I'm sorry?
Not put any other structure back there.
So it wouldn't be used as a hub for the streets department anymore?
Correct.
So in turn, so that being the case, would you plan on moving the streets department to the old Yana building? Because it is industrial after all.
Right, and we've talked about that, and I think that makes absolute sense to do that. The only question is what it's going to take to rehab that facility to make it viable.
You had $75,000 set aside to remodel a building for the streets department over at the,
Solid waste.
for solid waste?
yes.
Well, because there was office space needed for that individual inside Public Works. Why can't that person go into Public Works and the one from streets come over here?
Yeah, I have no problem with
Then
that.
you wouldn't need that 75 to remodel that building.
Correct.
Well,
I mean, that was going to be for a solid waste manager, which got cut from the budget, so all of that went away.
so has any of that money been spent? Well,
We never received any of the approval for that.
so is that a consideration that council might want to, desirous to speak about? If we move the streets department locally, it'll make it easier for Christmas, it'll make it easier to have the equipment there, but more than anything, it forces us to remodel that old police building and be done with that, because we're not doing anything with that. And I know at some point someone did a walkthrough. I'll tell you that, Hurricane Irma was a godsend when it came to that building, because I don't think anyone was going to plan on repairing it. But with just under $300,000, I think it's very important that we go ahead and put that money back into that building. Let the Church Service Center have that, but that would require us to renegotiate the contract with them. So that's something that we would have to go talk to them about and see whether or not they're willing to do that. Can this council at least open that option up before they move into the old Yana building. But, you know, I'd rather see that 75,000 be used to revamp the streets building or the Yana building and get it to the situation that you need it to be so that you can have something there. They wouldn't be under your direct supervision in terms physically, but it could be a hub for us.
Sure.
Either that or put it up for sale, because I just don't want to have another piece of property be out of the hands of the city that's, you know, industrial.
Right.
If we can keep it for ourselves, I think it's really important that we do that.
Okay.
Wasn't there a
Do you think it's a-
conversation, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
a conversation about possibly turning it over to, as a museum for the firefighters or something like that, state?
And that's another building that's gonna be, you know, we have a need currently for our local organizations, and I would like to take care of what we have first before we start expanding into other
I was saying,
areas.
you're proposing fixing up that old station building for
Yes.
for a city use.
Either, well, we do something with it, because we're not doing anything with it right now. We
Well,
have,
there's always an option of tearing it down.
well, yeah, but I don't like to just tear down just for the sake of tearing down. I mean, we have just under $300,000 to fix it,
I'm
so
not
it
sure
doesn't have to
spending
be.
300,000 on that building is worthwhile.
I'm not saying we
investment.
have to spend every dime. We can look at see what we could build there. If the church service center is desirous to continue to provide the service that they're doing, I'm sure we can work something out with them. It could be tailor-made just for them. So, you know, we don't have to spend it all. I'm sure we can build something that's not as grand, but nonetheless considerably more efficient. They weren't even using most of the building as it was, because there were wires and things everywhere. So we could still build something there that would be structurally safe and centrally located for them. But I just would not want to see that happen on the Yana property if we're going to use this old police station for something. Otherwise, tear it down. It's an eyesore.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's
Yeah.
a lot of, you know, potential future plans for different properties that the city has. So what I would be more interested in, because you have so much, of possibly having a meeting just on city buildings and what the future of these city buildings are going to be.
And we'll do the same thing that we did last year, because this list was basically the same, and we've sat here for a whole year and we've done nothing with them.
Well,
So
we've been waiting on
Wild
different-
Building's
we've
been
been
on there,
waiting on
Brickell
different
Building's
things.
been on it, the old skate park, has it been demolished?
Yep.
You know, we just have the same thing over and over again. The windows at City Hall have not been built. We're still sitting on stuck.
Yeah.
So
what are-
can
what are
we
you
focus on
suggesting that-
one?
What are you
Can we just
suggesting
make
that
a
we do on
motion
that?
and get it going? Is that?
Can we just pick on one building? We don't have to go through all of these on a separate night. Can't we just
I'll
pick
make the
one?
motion that we rehab the church service center and get them back in that building if they're willing to do that.
To what degree?
To what
To
degree?
what build out? To
Well, we
what-
got $200-something thousand, okay? We need to put it back in the same condition it was in before the storm come when they were working out of it. That's what we need to do. We need to put it back exactly like it was beforehand as best we can.
Well, Stanley, let me just say something. The building was not big enough at the beginning, because they had added another shed or
Correct.
something on there.
Correct.
So maybe we can extend it.
Correct. And they're wanting to put a big building over on the Yana property. Let them put it over at the
At the-
church place.
And what
Let
about
them
the,
do that, Garrett. They're wanting to spend their money to do that. Let them spend their money to put the big building over there. We'll rehab what was tore up, and everybody will be happy. We
So
can
don't
move the
you think-
water department in the city.
Don't you think it'd be a good idea to find out what exactly they want to do instead of just making a motion for something we
Well,
have no
Well, of
idea
course-
about?
Of course we
they're
would
at
have to
our-
do
They're
that.
kind of like at our expense. Does that kind of make sense to you too?
Okay, I guess not really.
I may be wrong, but I thought at one time Carl Cool looked at that building and said it wasn't basically worth
No, he said it was. He said
It can
was.
be, the
But
building
at
can be
extreme
rebuilt.
cost.
It's just a matter, well, I think you're thinking of, on the same list of the Wild building, not the church
Well, I know
service
that
building.
one was no.
Look, anything can be done. The building can be rebuilt, but you need to figure out what exactly we're gonna do with the building, how it's gonna be rebuilt, and what is the best use of it. Just simply saying, okay, we're gonna fix it, that don't really do a whole heck of a lot of good.
Well, they provide service, you know.
Right, but they also
pantry
have
food
their own
service and-
plans. They have plans of getting into a different building of their own.
But, wait a minute, Garrett, I think there was another organization, Hands for Homeless, came to us at one time who wanted to partner with the church services and become one service. Because I think they had asked for the old skating ring or.
Yeah, they didn't want to be
skating
one
thing.
service. That was the reason why they never did that.
No, not one, I apologize, not one service.
Yeah.
Two organizations under one
They
building.
didn't want to be in the same building. That's why that never happened. They wanted to have their own property. I mean, that's the way it was expressed to me by their
Well, it wasn't
representative.
expressed to me like that.
Yeah, they wanted the skate park property, and they wanted us to basically build them a building there and say, here you go.
Oh, I didn't get that now.
Yeah.
That's a
Can I
different
say
meaning that
something?
you had.
You say whatever you want, Stanley.
You said that they had their own plans. I was told their own plans was based off a $1 million life insurance policy that somebody had left them. You know how often people change beneficiaries on their policy? How they get mad and change and do, and the family decides that's not the best thing. So we don't need to wait on something like that. We need to take the money that we got for that building and do something as a council. Do something.
Well, in the
We've done
We
meantime,
don't
in
want
a
to do.
year's
We don't
time.
want to do the wrong thing,
no,
Stanley.
in the
I'm
meantime,
sorry?
We don't want to do the wrong
No,
thing.
okay.
No,
We want to make the best use of that taxpayer money.
I guess that's the best thing, because since I've been on this council, I'm gonna tell you how I feel. We've done nothing. Nothing.
That's your opinion.
That
Stanley.
is my opinion, but that is my opinion.
well,
and
why
I
can't
told
we
you
go
that.
ahead and take a look at it and get a real written out, idea of what can be done? If we can just restructure it, look, there's no problem in doing that. Otherwise we're just sitting on an old building that has no use whatsoever. So A, we either demo it, or B, we fix it up. B, it could be either done remodeling what we have, or changing it altogether and making it fit. But it all relies on whether or not the church service center is still interested in moving back into that building if we fixed it up. I would prefer that the streets department be on Main Street. That's really the crux of it here. Get them out of the pocket area over there on Lake Avenue, not have to take care of that for streets, and get it out of that residential community and put it right here in our industrial. That to me is number one. Number two is everything else. So, can we go back to the church service center and renegotiate with them? I believe we have a 30-day out. They have a year contract.
Right.
They're in the process of trying to figure out whether or not they want to build something on it. Why can't we pool all of those resources together and just do something really nice and be done with that? And then still have our industrial property for the city, for city use.
So are you suggesting that we have a meeting about that?
No, what I'd like to do is check and see whether or not what is that we can do with the existing building. I know that Carl walked through it. I know that you've walked through it.
Yep. You can either rebuild it or tear it down.
Okay, there you go. So if we would have to rebuild it, I'd like to see what someone can come up with, some plans perhaps, and tell us what we can do. If it ends up being more fiscally reasonable to tear it down and make it look like it did before, then that's great as well. I'd like to have some of the facade still kept with it. We're talking about tearing down the Wild building. I don't like tearing down historic buildings, so we have the money to fix it. That's what the insurance paid for. So if we could fix it with the money that we have, I say we fix it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the intention is to put the streets department over at the Yana property, which is not a bad idea, but that's going to take a little bit of planning as to what facilities you're actually going to need. So then we would need a plan for what that's going to cost. And it may work out to where we can use that amount of money that we have, the 75 plus the insurance money, to accomplish all of that. But I guarantee you it's going to cost more to just rehab that building, for no purpose than it may be to actually do all of that with new structures. So that's what I would like to see. What do you need in terms of structures? What is that going to cost?
Why don't we instruct the city manager to get with the church services people
Yep.
and find out their plan?
I was getting to that.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah. So we need to find out what structures you need, just like Ms. Gray said. Find out what the Church Services Center actually plans on doing for the next 5 or 10 years or whatever. And then we will find out what would it cost to tear the building down. Speaking of the old station building, what will it cost to tear it down? What would it cost to rehab it back into a viable shell, basically?
Okay.
Is that agreeable?
You're our infrastructure director. This falls under you. So,
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask you then one question. Under the OPD building, it says EPI looked at the building, but no quote has been received. Was that quote to demolish it, or was that quote to rebuild it? I assume it was to take it down.
That was to look at both, I believe, but they didn't
Both?
provide us a quote either way.
So without a quote, we don't know what we can do with it yet.
Well, from that one, but I mean, we haven't actually sent out an actual request for quote.
Okay.
Well,
why don't we do that?
Flowers said-
Let's do
Go ahead,
something.
Maria. When Flowers was here, he and Carl Cole went in the old fire station,
Mm-hmm.
and they came out and said that building was not in that bad a shape, and that it could make a go. He said that just as plain as I'm sitting
Yeah,
here.
the
saying.
shell, right.
So I don't know why we don't get a contractor to get started on something and to get something done. I mean, that's just what I don't understand.
Because I don't like spending money on things you don't know what it's going to cost.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Let him go in there and say, this is what it's gonna cost to do it.
What do you think I
We've
just
done
did,
nothing-
Stanley?
We've done nothing in a year's time.
What do you think I just did?
Well, you wanted to have a special meeting. You had to get your feet put in the fire to do that.
Oh, is that what you think you did?
I know it is.
Okay.
Come on.
All right. So we are making progress, slowly but surely, as the nature of government. Anyway, so is there any,
We can save the rest of this and we can pick away at them if you'd like, since you don't want to sit here and go through them tonight.
I
I
don't
think
have a
that,
problem with it.
well, okay, gazebo. I had some good
We have
news on that
We
one.
have a motion
Yeah, what was
to
the motion I
rebuild
made?
the
What was
church
it?
services center.
We have a motion. Was there a second?
I don't
I
believe
didn't
so.
hear a second.
No.
Died for lack of second. Go
Second.
ahead. You can't second your own
You
motion.
made the motion.
All right, gazebo. You were saying.
Okay, but let me find, so what was the decision here?
Yeah,
We're gonna
that's
have
it.
staff take a look at it, they're gonna get in touch with a couple of contractors, get an idea of what it would be to revamp it, keeping the shell, right?
Yep.
Okay, and in the meantime, we'll just get status updates on what that's all about, right?
Yep.
Okay, and also, in terms of the streets building, the streets department moving into the old Yana building, you still have to call the, church service center, but you were also gonna see, I can't imagine that the expense to, what's over at the current streets building over there off of Lake is, this can't be any big expense to move into that one building, at least until you get started with what you need to have there. But I'd rather see that $75,000 used to rehab that than to rehab the building over at Public Works. That's just me.
Okay.
All right, in regards to the gazebo, I spoke to the Casey Wall from the TDC, and they have this thing called a Geo Finders, and it's a touristy thing where you sign up on your app and you go find little cache, that's CACHE. And they're having a big event out over at Highlands Hammock State Park. But what she said was, of those individuals, between 20 to 500 individuals would be, they're gonna pick one project in Highlands County, and we're hoping to pick the gazebo. And what they would do is we provide all the supplies, the paint, the scrape, the this, the that, and they would do whatever it is that we would want them to do. We just supply them to the stuff, and that happens in May. So if this is something that the council would like to see and have a big community effort done for us, I think it's a beautiful thing to have volunteers work for us. So that was just an idea. If it's okay with this council, I'll get back with the TDC and let them know that this is a site that we're interested in them doing.
I think we should move forward with that idea.
Nobody has a problem with it.
Okay, so that's done with that one. And then the other thing was in regards to City Hall, the payment windows downstairs. Kim, this has been a big deal for me. It's been a big deal for many years, and we just seem not to be able to move forward with getting safety glass downstairs and making sure that the bank downstairs looks like a bank. So, what's the project, what's the scope at this point? Where are we on that one? Because it's really important. Their cameras, I don't know if they work, but, we know what gets paid down there. And especially at the beginning of the month for some people that get paid, it's pretty big. And I just don't see any security down there other than just, a door that oftentimes isn't even locked.
Do you have any plan for security glass?
Well, what's in the packet here was talking about some of the security glass, and I know that Danielle had said that we had $8,800 toward the security glass, and we have $100,000 in the budget for refurbishing City Hall, so we can move forward with the security glass. So Robert said that the layout was wrong, so what we'll need to do is to get a company to come in, so that the cost may change, but we need to get a company come in, show us what the layout would be, show us what they have, and then we can bring that back to council with the cost and then move forward on that, because we do need to move forward on that. It's not real safe down there.
Anyone object to that?
Not at all,
No.
but as
Okay.
long as we move on that and just get something going. Also, there's a lot of cosmetic issues on that building. The doors look really, really, you know, they're just weathered and used, and they just need to have a little sprucing up. So walking around City Hall, I think, would be important in addressing those concerns. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in Highlands County, and I think that we need to treat it as such.
Okay, so we'll get that going.
Okay, the rest of the stuff, I don't know if the council looks at any of this and considers that these are any other issues. I know that Jerry was gonna talk about the Wild building. At this point, Ronnie, I guess there's nothing else on your plate from this list,
Okay.
but it'll come,
The old
right?
skate park?
Yeah, well, the skateboard park, that's just across the street from the gazebo. We need to tear that thing out. It's an eyesore. It's, you
Can
know.
city staff take care of that demolition?
Let me get through the holidays and we should be able to take care of that.
Okay.
So would you resurface it with asphalt, or what would you do with it?
Whatever council's direction is for me to do.
We
I
need to
can
find out
take
what's
it down
gonna
and
happen.
grass it
Yeah.
temporarily, or I can go back with gravel, whatever you so desire.
Well, I'd like to see it as public parking. You know, it's the C4 district on that one particular lot, I believe. So, I mean, if anything, it would be parking for any of the businesses that are there as well.
I agree with that, and I believe we have a continuing contract with EPI, so we would know what our cost in that would be, right?
Yeah, yeah. You need an estimate from them.
Okay.
I also up the one on the restroom for the museum building, that was discussed earlier this year. I think we need to move forward with that. I mean, there's no reason why we can't. They said they need it badly, and we don't
Do you
have
know
to
of
worry.
any,
we don't have
any
a mural to
roadblocks?
block, so.
Do you know of any roadblocks to that bathroom project? I believe that was Mr. Trevino's baby.
They
was it
have a
not?
residential toilet in there, and they need an industrial toilet. So I don't know what type of stuff you're going to need, but that bathroom is used by the public whenever the community is closed.
Right.
Yeah.
I know he turned stuff in on this issue to Mr. Flowers, and I don't know where it went from there. as
Let's see
far
if we
as-
can get a hold of that information, see where we're at with it.
Okay.
But the roof was fixed, so thank you. That was really important
was,
to
yeah.
them.
Okay.
Anything else on item number 21?
The only other one I wanted to talk about was, well, all of them, obviously, if we're gonna have to put these on something else. Like I said, Ronnie, I kind of feel like I'm rushing through them, you know, for your sake, because you gotta go, but I think I'm done with your stuff, but I'm not done with the rest of the list.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody
right.
else have any more questions for Ronnie?
Nope.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so I mean, we can
Let
wait
Ronnie
until
go.
the agenda gets to these items if you want, since we've got 12 through 18 to go through, and we can wait for the rest of this, or unless you want to just move this entire thing up.
Let's just finish 21 and get it done.
All right, beautification efforts of the mall, north and south. Now, I know that, you know, we came to a screeching halt with
You
that
still in
bid.
21? That's 22.
I'm sorry, you're right. That's the one that excites me. On the Wild building, from what I gather now, after speaking to Jerry, that the Enigbonyanes no longer have a hold on that property, and that we can do with it what we wish. So if that's something that we're gonna have to,
I think they passed around the letter from,
Mm-hmm.
and what he just says in summary is, they haven't stopped filing claims, and that is the American system. But we're gonna start seeking attorney's fees for them. And he basically summarizes the fact that it doesn't seem like there's any pathway for her to obtain the building back. And we did obtain title. So, I mean, is there no risk? I think he mentioned in the end, I mean, courts do what courts do, but there doesn't seem to be any legal pathway for them to get that building back, even though they keep filing different claims to try and get it back. But we will start seeking attorney's fees to the extent that we're allowed. And if you have no problem with the summary he's got there, then you probably proceed forward.
well, I know that this is one of the buildings that has been, I hate to see it demoed. I mean, that's just me, but I know there are a lot of people in town that want to see it gone, because it's just been sitting vacant now for nearly 10 years, if not longer, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and we're boarding it up and doing all sorts of stuff to it, but we need to do something with that building for the sake of the businesses around it that have been putting up with it for decades. But if we could get some estimates on actual demo versus rehab, if the same people can take a look at this, that would look at the church service center building, or rather the old police building, maybe we can get some ideas from those groups to either way. But it might end up being that we have to demo it if it's something that is just going to be impossible to take care of. My own big concern is that they share a wall with the building adjacent to it. How do you tear something down when it shares a wall?
Very carefully. And with a lot of
You know,
insurance.
I don't want to end up owning the building next door. That happened in downtown Bartow. They tore
Yeah.
down a building and they ended up owning it.
I mean, they're specialized in that. You know, we had
Yeah.
got a quote from EPI at one time. I think it was like 77,000, I want to say, but that's been probably 3 years ago.
Well, if we could,
So-
if EPI is giving the estimate on the other one, why not get an estimate on this one also,
Yeah.
Kim?
Yep.
Put it out for quote.
Well, we have a contract with him, so he could go out there and do it. Can he not?
He could.
Yeah.
So you don't need to put that out to bid. We already have, I think if that's included in his contract, he does construction not engineering, construction and demolition.
I'm pretty sure it is. I
Yeah.
just think that, I mean, most of the time whenever
So
we.
we don't need to go out for
No,
bid?
just take a look at his contract. It might be up for renewal soon also, but you take a look, please, and just check and see if he could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing was to, after you tear it down, put back grass or like a small park
Yeah,
or
like a
something,
little
so-
pocket park. Yeah.
You know, I also would like to see if the CRA advisory board would look into fixing up the other buildings, because not only in the back do they look terrible, but even the front, where the majority of them have the blue awnings, it'd be nice if they all had the same color awnings, and then somehow we fix the frontage of it too. So if we get some freed up money on the CRA, hopefully the advisory board would come up with something with that, because that would be a great project to do on Main Street to take care of, besides the Wild Building, the rest of the buildings, to make them look pretty on the front and the back.
Yeah.
Because on the back side, it looks almost like a hazard, you know, and so.
Right. The individual property owners have to be on board with that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think if the CRA is willing to help them out, I think they might happen that way. So
Yeah.
just a suggestion.
All
Okay.
right, so we got streets. What else was there here?
I see Brickell on here.
Well, the CRA, when we met with the advisory board, they're talking about going ahead and getting estimates, or not estimates, but proposals for getting it up for sale and
Right.
putting that out there, so that's a
Yeah.
good thing. When we have our CRA board meeting, I don't know when we're gonna have the next one, but I'd like, whenever we have that, hopefully we'll have some answers by then in terms of where we're moving with that.
Okay. I see community center.
Yeah, community center, I was just asking, I was there the other day, and the irrigation doesn't seem to be working. I don't know if that's an issue that, I couldn't tell if they just turned it off or if it's not working, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know Robert said this week, I think it was just yesterday, that there was some irrigation problems up the street, that he had people working on it. Apparently somebody had worked on it, the timer was off and it had been running all night, but I'm not certain. He indicated it was up by the community center, but I don't know if it was at the actual parking
Talking about
lot.
the air conditioner.
Yeah.
The AC.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought she said.
No, I had
irrigation.
community center on there, she just inserted that the AC unit was installed. Was there supposed to be a generator there at some point, or no?
We talked about that, being able to have a hookup with one of the portable ones during a hurricane or some other major issue, so we could use that as another central point. I know that I believe we have 5 portable generators, and that was mainly backup for our water system, but we could also have one, so I think easily we could have it so they have a separate hookup to community center. During a hurricane, you could have electric, you could have AC, we could even look at putting in Wi-Fi, something like that. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
something we can look at. I think would be a great idea before next July.
I think we had requested a estimate for that from the company who put in the air conditioning system. And it looks like, I don't believe they actually provided us with one, but if anybody would know, Robert would know.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a either
An electrician, which that company, I mean, it was Long's, and they are electrical company, yeah.
Contractor too.
And getting back to the gazebo, Kim, there's mold on the west side of that roof. So whether or not these people come in May to assist us, and maybe it doesn't need any other repairs. I mean, I know it was recently, they'll scrape it down, they'll scrape it and paint it, anything we want. But the mold can be fixed now. I mean, that's gonna require someone to get up there and clean it off.
Yes, I'll get with Robert on that tomorrow.
Talking about the gazebo?
Yeah.
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 Well, why does it say it had been painted?
Well, what happened is, that's what I just posed in block my questions to her, and she responded in red.
Okay, so
So that's why I'm saying, if it doesn't need to be painted, then we may not need those individuals to help with that. Maybe we can put them on City Hall and have them paint the historic doors. Well, they're not historic, but kind of vamp a little bit outside. But they're looking for a project, but if the TDC is allowing Avon Park to kind of have our say on how those volunteers end up being used, I'd rather use them in Avon Park, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So,
yes.
if it doesn't need painting, then no.
Okay, well, we can go out and look at it
Okay.
and,
Anything else on item number 21?
Nope.
All right, going back to item number 13. Code enforcement work schedule. Pull that microphone to your face there, Marnita.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Better? Okay. We currently work from Monday through Saturday, and it's come to my attention that you possibly want Sunday. But Sunday, there's not much going on. When we catch, I understand it's for building purposes, somebody building a fence or shed or whatever, but we basically find all of that through the week. And whatever we find on the weekend, we have to wait till Monday to contact the building official, because they're not open on the weekends. So Sunday is, I don't understand why you would want.
I don't see any
Sunday.
reason why you should have to work on Sunday. And to me, I mean, most people, majority of people maybe go to church, they stay home a lot, they cook out, they watch TV. The amount of problems that you might have is, one thing I could think of is maybe somebody having a yard sale without a permit on Sunday. If they think that's going to get people out to come shopping, then I don't know. But I just don't think it's necessary to have them work on a 7-day schedule in any way, shape, or form. And I think 6 days is more than enough. And from my understanding is we got a lot of different code enforcement reports made up. So I think that Monday through Friday is good. Saturday is a plus. So I don't know why we would look at Sunday.
Any other questions or comments?
I see a lot of violations on Sunday. There's illegal dumping going on. I mean, I've seen construction. I've notified the city manager via emails and texts on occasion where I see stuff on Sunday. I know that no one wants to work on Sunday, but it is what it is. I mean, the city never sleeps. And, you know, all jobs state on there that the hours are subject to the direction of their supervisor. I don't know, Marnita. I mean, in the past, we had Saturday and Sunday. The reason why code enforcement had so many extra people was so that they could work on the weekends. And now it seems like we're not doing that other than Saturdays. I don't know if they spend most of the time in the office or if they're actually driving around. But
They're not in the office.
But I don't know.
I'm in the
That's why-
office because I have to do zoning
Yeah.
now. So me and Ashley, we're probably the only ones in there, besides Bubba every now and then.
on Saturdays?
No, on Saturdays, no one's in the office. They're out riding.
Okay. But anyway, I think that the same people that do things on Saturdays do them on Sundays. I'll tell you, there's several homes that I drive around. You know, I have a ward and I take them here and there, and I see a lot of violations on the weekends, a lot of construction. And oftentimes, you know, I don't go home and look and see whether or not they have something on the computer. I just figure most of the people have permits. But more often than not, when you see a truck that doesn't have a business or some sign out in front, then you know that it's illegal. But I mean, you tell me, would it be okay if we did a trial basis and see what we could find? I mean,
Well, actually, before Greg and I used to work on Sundays. It's like a ghost town, really. There's not much going on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, my thought about working on Sunday, I think we should allow our staff at least that day off to go to church, to be with their families or whatever they want to do that day. I'm not a proponent for people working on Sundays.
Yep. I agree with that, and I also know that on one Sunday I decided during election time to stand out on Main Street to wave at people, and I noticed that there was hardly any traffic until after 12 noon, and then after about 1:30, 2 o'clock, there was hardly any traffic. So as far as people out and about, I don't see them out and about. That doesn't mean that some things can't happen, but I think that I think our employees deserve the right to have Sundays off over trying to catch somebody doing something illegal 1 day a week. I think 6 days a week is more than sufficient.
I don't think it's a matter of just being off on Sunday, but I venture to say most of the building that's going on in this town goes on Sunday and Saturday afternoons and Saturday late whenever there's nobody around. I watched the house behind me totally remodeled at that length of time. I watched another one totally built.
Did you
length of
report it
time.
to the building department, Stanley?
Hey, listen, how many times, Maria, did I report that house that was being totally rebuilt? How many times
But
did I
to
report?
the building department. You
What
see,
now?
the city doesn't have any jurisdiction over that. This is the building department that handles it. So if the
I-
building
listen,
department doesn't do anything
I
about
have talked
it.
to the building department, I've talked to the city about it.
Right.
And zero was done.
Exactly, but that's
The
zero.
hou-
That,
Let me finish.
Okay.
You're out
All
of order.
right.
You want to cut me off every time I get started.
I'll tell
and
you
I
when we're
about
done.
had a belly full of that. You understand where I'm coming from?
That's
Now
great,
you're out
Stanley.
of order, and I
All
want
right.
you to stay there till I shut up, and then you can lorate me all you want to.
if it's on topic, I'll let you speak.
I had a house behind me that was totally rebuilt. I reported it to the building department, to the code enforcement. Nothing was done. Zero was done. I had a house that's exactly beside me that was going that way, that I reported it, and the code went around there and said, hey, he's on the city council, he's complaining about you doing this, y'all can't do that. Don't tell me that it's working right. One block off of Main Street was 2 horses that were there for months and months and months. So don't tell me what's going on. I can give you violations left and right.
Did you
And
report it?
Yes, I reported it.
So what's the difference between whenever you reported it and then working on Sunday if you already reported it?
Hey, nothing got done, but I'm telling you,
Exactly.
Garrett, I'm telling you that the building that goes on that's illegal goes on late Saturdays and Sundays, all day long.
And
And
the
if
building-
you don't ride around, you don't know that. And I'll shut up and let you tell me how I'm wrong.
Well, you are wrong, and I'll tell you why.
That's fine.
So the building that's behind your house, you said that it got built over the course of several weeks, right?
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question.
Yes, sir.
And you reported that to the building department,
I
right?
sure did.
Okay. The building department is the official in that case.
What you want me to do about that?
Exactly. There's nothing that you can do about it.
I'm-
If the building department doesn't do anything about it, there's nothing that can be done. You realize?
But if they don't have a permit, it means that they never went through the city to get the permit. They have to get a permit first through the city, which now is Marnita's department, because now she's doing the permitting. If
Okay.
that place doesn't have a permit, it comes to us first, which we
How-
would have to issue that permit.
Right.
And then it goes
actually
to the
came
building
to
department.
the city, to the code enforcement. They went out there, they wrote the citation. The building official went out there, which she's already spoke to Mr. Stanley, and he told us to close it, that there was nothing he was gonna do. That's Eric Longshore.
Right. Exactly. If the building department does not want to do it, there's nothing that the city can do about it. Now, the city can have their own building department, but in this case, there's nothing that can be done. The code enforcement did
That's
their
funny.
job, and you
That's really
reported it.
funny. That's really funny. He can do that in the city limits. He can steal the electricity. He can steal the sewer. He can build that all up, and there's nothing the city can do about that.
Well, no, I mean, if they're taking utilities, obviously there's something we can do about it. But if it has to do with the building department not being permitted or not permitted properly or something like that, if the building department, you've all delegated the authority to do the work on the building permit, refuses to do anything, there's nothing we can do because
there was not a permit.
we couldn't bring them into code enforcement without that person as a witness.
Correct.
So what happens with a property, and I'm just kind of going off on a limb here, they build a whole shed, turn it into a house. I mean, there should be fire assessment on that. If they have utilities in there, that is something that's responsibility to the city, because we would have to verify that they did have water, sewer, and that's happened on countless occasions. We do know that when we see it. But, at what point does those things the city can fix is make sure that their water and sewer is hooked up. They're not allowed to have it if it's a structure in excess of 25% of their footprint. So that would be an illegal building, at least from the permitting side. So how is it that the city has no authority over something when we have a code that says that we do?
Well,
You can't have any accessory structures in excess of 25% of your footprint of your home.
if they violated your code,
Uh-huh.
um,
Okay, the building
That-
says they
that-
can't do anything about it, but the city still has a code.
well, yeah, if they violated your code, then you can, and they're not willing to enforce it, then you could take an injunction against them, if you wanted to do that. But having to do with building code violations, even if it's in your code that they're violating, and you really adopt the building code of the state, so, I mean, that's the case. But you have to, for building code violations, you have to have the building official as your witness. And if they're saying everything is okay, they're not gonna be a good witness for that situation. But if it's something where they violated your zoning or land development code, then that's something you can take action about. That's not a building code violation. That's your land development code violation. And, you know,
It's
you
going
need
nowhere.
somebody to verify that, and then you can file for an injunction if they refuse to fix it.
Well, pardon me?
I was asking, who verifies it?
Somebody has to say, you know, that this is what happened. It's 25% bigger, and it's a violation of this particular code section. You know, in that case, it's a code violation, and you can start a code case on that.
So code enforcement would be the one who would verify it? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I'm
that's
asking?
one, yeah, that's one alternative, yeah.
Okay.
They could.
It's not beneficial to the city to have a rotating one person work on Sunday to look for this kind of stuff? Is that not, can you not work that out?
That's the beauty of construction, is that the building's still gonna be there, Stanley. You know, you don't.
Yeah, I'm talking about my case, but I'm talking about the illegal stuff that's going on. I mean, you see a guy out there putting a roof on, they don't have a permit.
Well, I guarantee you 90% of that is reported by neighbors, you know.
I'm
It
looking for
doesn't
the-
work. He's been complaining for
I'm
years.
looking for the other 10.
Right.
But
You've done all
whenever
you
the
can do.
neighbors report it,
Well, I'm
the code
just-
comes out and says, hey, this
Right.
guy's on the council, he reported you.
Right. Well, I just refuse
love
to
that. That's
upheave
good.
everything over a, you know,
I
over a
love that.
personal issue.
That was a good one.
So Marnita, does your code department, as the staff, you know, do they look at accessory structures and say, that doesn't look like it belongs, even though building code may have said, or, you know, Mr. Longshore has said, it's good to go, you're fine. Do you still go back and say, well, it doesn't meet setbacks, it doesn't meet the threshold of the 25% footprint of the primary structure? Do you look at any of that?
Okay,
And
we're not versed really in zoning, so we don't really know how to measure or to tell them that they're not in the right setback.
so when that happens and the construction takes place and it's on a Sunday or a Saturday or any other night, you don't know to tell them to stop because you don't know if the setbacks are met
To
or,
be honest, yes.
Right.
We still need a building inspector.
Oh, there are contract building.
but the building inspector wouldn't know that. He would not know about the setbacks. That's not his responsibility. That's ours. That's our code enforcement.
Oh, who do you have that's experienced in that area that can look at that?
Central Florida Regional Planning.
Yeah, but
But I don't think they do. They don't do any.
permit.
They don't really work on enforcement at all.
Well, they will give you, if there's a question raised, they will answer the question.
Yeah.
That's the point.
If somebody goes out and actually does the measurements, but who's going to do that since you can't really enter the property? You know, how are you going to tell that?
which is why if you have construction and they're in the middle of it, you know, what can you do? Can you say, hey, you don't have a permit. You can't work on that today. Can you stop them from doing that? Or they're just going to continue and then hopefully the
Well-
building code will say, they're good to go.
I'll just simply say that stopping construction without knowing absolutely what's going on is a dangerous thing.
Well, even if they don't
Because
have a permit?
If
They don't have
no-
a
no, they
permit,
don't
you
have
can
a
stop the
permit.
construction. I mean,
If
they're
they're
code
required to have
enforcement
one-
officers.
If they're required to have one, but I think there's a percentage of what they're working. There's certain things that are not permitted, like, you know, if it's, doesn't have a roof, like a pergola or something like that, they're putting in. But if they're adding an addition onto the building, it would seem to me that has to have a permit. But it's your building official that needs to tell you that. Yeah, if they're, then maybe the option is that, you know, maybe it's time for you to get your own building official. You know,
Well, the thing is with building, if somebody builds something and it's to code, you know, there's a way to rectify that. If somebody builds something and it's just ungodly ugly, you know, they're going to hear about it. It's not going to go anywhere. So if somebody did something, and my goodness, they got by with something, but it looks good and everybody's happy with it, I mean, is it that big of a deal?
well, you can't let people just violate the code simply because,
I
you know,
understand.
people are satisfied at the end. I think that the issue really is, the sooner you catch somebody doing this, the better it is, because after they've added an addition, which is unpermitted and turns out to be unpermittable, you tell them to rip that off. I
Yeah.
mean, at that point, it's an uncomfortable circumstance. Can you do that? Yes. I mean, by law, you could get an injunction and make them rip it all off.
And they do it all the time.
Yep.
But, you know, it creates a case where you know you're going to go to court, okay? And spend the cost associated with that. Whereas if you catch them in the act, you say, wait a minute, where's your permit? Are you sure you can do this?
But keep it down out there in the audience.
Marnita, what is the level of limits that staff has? I mean, I mean, if you're saying that you're not looking at setbacks, that, you know, when you drive by and you see, I mean, what do they recognize as the easy stuff? I mean, code enforcement is about enforcing the code, and setbacks are part of our code. Are you saying that that's not part of the repertoire of your staff?
Not right now. They're in class right now. So,
But are
you
they
know,
learning the zoning issues as well, or are we just doing, you know, very basic type
what
of
do you mean
stuff?
by the zoning issue?
Well, the land development code is
Yeah.
part of your code.
Okay.
And so what she's saying is that there's requirements in there that have to be met as well.
Right.
And that your staff should be familiar with those sections,
yes,
so
we
they can
do-
look
we
something
do go
like
by
that
the
up.
land
Yeah, well,
development
you really
regulations
can't
also.
put this addition on, even if you got a permit, because it doesn't fit the setbacks. You know, and hopefully somebody looked at that before they issued a permit, but, you know, that does happen.
But you do look at that. There's a
Yes.
form, and you fill out which zone they're in, whether they're C4, C2, whatever. And then you designate and you look at your LDR to make sure that the setbacks are appropriate, and then you either sign off on it or you don't.
Right.
And then that person can or cannot build based off of
And
that.
is-
So
now, does this,
there is a checklist that's done.
do you allow, you know, separated garages, or are all garages supposed to have to be attached? And,
Attached.
You know, and things like that. I mean, you need to be familiar with that, because we shouldn't be issuing permits for those types of things if they're not allowed.
I should be issuing permits?
No, you should not be.
Oh, okay, no, I don't issue any permits. But when they come in, I am the only one that has the applications. Once they fill them out, I send them to Jeff,
And
and
does-
he okays everything.
if he doesn't
right
look at the zoning code, then nobody's looking at the zoning code to determine whether what's being requested is allowed.
Yeah, but you know, that process is when everything goes right. What Stanley is bringing up is the fact that a lot of times the process does not start with code enforcement. People just willy-nilly build a shed. Or they'll go ahead and put an addition on their house and they won't do anything. So how do we, as a city, make sure that that doesn't continue? Yeah, the end result might look decent, but if it's not up to code, it's not up to code. They're breaking the law.
It was reported to the building department.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
They okayed
Once
it.
we see it, we ask them to stop, and then we call the building department.
well,
But shouldn't you also be calling Jeff and letting him know, we've got this here, they don't have a permit on it, are they allowed to do it? Shouldn't that individual fill out that form?
Yep.
And at least you've got your side, meaning the city's side of business, taken care of that. Are you zoned appropriately for what you're doing? Does it meet the setback requirements, height limitations, whatever?
Yeah. And-
Without
and-
that, you can't move.
And
Right.
run
When
those
we
things.
stop them, we have door hangers. We put everything on that door hanger. Once we come back in, we put it in our system. And then we let them know that they have a certain amount of days to get in touch with us.
Uh-huh.
And then we go from there.
Do they always get in touch with you?
More than likely, yes. Because
Well-
if they don't, we actually issue the violation. We don't do citations,
I have a
we do the
question.
violation.
On my case, you're familiar with what I'm talking about, where the garage was closed in and they live there now. Did a permit ever get issued by this city for that to be done?
Permit, no, sir.
Never was issued. Never
No,
was a
not
permit
that
issued.
I'm aware of. The 915 Alton, is that
That
what
is
you're referring
correct.
to?
Never was a
Yes.
permit issued.
No.
There you go.
But they went inside. Greg went inside. There's no one living there. It's a
Does it
bunch
have
of
a bathroom? It
tires
has a
and-
bathroom in it, it has a kitchen in it, and it has a bed in it.
No,
Yes,
there's
it
no
does.
kitchen in there.
The city, the county building man told me that.
Well, when Greg went in, unless Greg didn't see it, which I
How could he
doubt.
not see it?
He said there is nobody's
built
living
it
there.
afterwards.
There's tires and different things in there.
But that's all we
There-
can rely on. If we had an inspector, and the inspector didn't see anything that would create the violation, that's an issue. But I'm more concerned, you know, they mentioned 2 horses in somebody's yard.
They were pretty horses,
They were
too.
pretty.
Gosh,
They've
they
been
were
there for
gorgeous.
You know
months.
how they
But-
have the animals for.
It's a
don't
business.
know.
They must have them like pony rides or something.
No, it was like medical, you know how you have the service dogs?
Oh.
They actually had papers for those horses as service horses.
Get out of here.
Yes, they did.
The ponies?
The little ponies, yes. I remember.
All right, we got to
Yeah.
keep the comments down
I
out there,
remember that.
guys.
Yeah, I remember that. They actually had papers for that.
Okay, so back to the issue of working on Sunday. Do we want to make a motion? Okay, seeing no motion. Moving on. Item number 14, approval of the Avon Park Professional Firefighters CBA. We do have a sign up, Warren West. We have Chief Marcy as well. I don't know if you guys intend on comment at the same time or What? Okay.
Chief Marcy, my address is 98 South Delaney Avenue.
Yes, sir.
I'll try to make this brief. We've had a couple meetings. Just want to thank you for your time and energy in those meetings. We've gone through a bunch of stuff just to recap: management rights, change some wording, promotions, pay raises. We consolidated the MOU. I don't know if anybody has a chance to read it. I have a couple copies, but I only have 2. They're like 40 pages. I didn't think you guys would want to review this up here tonight. So in there is the all that stuff we talked about, and consolidated the MOU into it, which changes from 10-mile residents to 15-mile residents, if you guys approve that. As of right now, the union has read over it and agreed to everything. So it's back to you guys at this point for what you would like to do next.
I personally would like to keep it at 10. I prefer them living within the city limits of Avon Park, or living within Avon Park area. I don't want to change it to the 15-mile living area.
Very hard to do, to find, you know,
I know it's not,
qualified people that want to do that.
because I just, I mean, there is places that people could live in Avon Park. That's nice.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, to find qualified candidates that want to move into the city is hard to do. There's not many places with residency requirements anymore.
Andy, how many of our firefighters now live within the city limits of Avon Park?
In the city limits right now?
Yes.
We don't have any.
None.
So if we don't extend it to 15 miles, then we might have to get rid of people.
No.
Do they all live within a 10-mile limit
Well,
existing?
we're hiring people.
No, he says
you know,
new
we have
people.
new people that have just
Yeah.
hired, that they have 2 years to move. I don't know where they're gonna move to. You know, this just gives them the opportunity to move a little further away if they choose to. That doesn't mean they're going to pick 15 miles to live.
Yeah.
That just gives them a little more area that they can choose from.
What's wrong with living in Avon Park?
I-
We live here, and we love it.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying
so, I mean-
anything's wrong. I'm just trying to expand the pool where they can
Yeah,
live.
I
Give
understand
more
that, but
opportunity.
that's just my preference. You
Right.
know, as I told you today, that's just what I prefer.
Yeah.
I don't really
I'm
have-
interested in finding the best
Yeah.
people.
That's exactly
and,
my point.
15 miles is
is
not
there
a
a-
problem to me.
On your application form, do you provide preference to people that live closer?
No.
Just, okay. I don't have a problem with the 15 miles. I mean, you and I talked about being on call and stuff. I'd prefer to be inside the city as well. But sometimes that's just not feasible.
Right.
You know, for some people it isn't. They may already have a house with a huge mortgage on it and they just can't sell and move here. So I get that.
Wait a minute, I think
He's
what
talking about
he
new
told
ones.
me for new people.
Yeah,
yes.
but even new people
So-
may already have a house and
Correct,
already have a
yes, yeah.
mortgage and already have a family and everything else elsewhere. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're single and that all of a sudden here I am. They already could be an established person. They already have a house. They're just
So
getting
they
a
gotta have
job.
a job too.
Yeah.
The
Well,
way I
that's,
see it.
you know, there's always that chance, and they could be coming from some other place that already has, you know, who knows, maybe they're leaving Sebring and coming here. But I would not want to burden anybody with having to sell their house, and in a certain time frame, you know, or else they lose their job, especially if you've got someone that's highly qualified and is loyal and willing to do the job. It's competitive enough, so I'm okay with the 15 miles.
I'm okay with it too. I think we need to go after the best capable people. I think that between you and other members of the, even ex-retired members, I think you can find the best people from the college to bring over and train them. And I know that, I believe we were still short 2 people at one time, or still are short 2 people.
We're still in the process of about to hire again. We had our newest firefighter sitting back here, but he left a little bit ago.
Okay, but like I said, if we need to get the jobs filled. If it takes going to 15 miles, I'm all for it.
So, Andy, can you just, for the benefit of the audience as well, and to refresh my mind, when someone's on call, what's the protocol to get them here, and any safety issues with being the 15 miles out?
Well, it's all voluntary. You know, they take home pagers, so if they're available, we page out for off-duty for everybody that can come in to come in. And from there, it's just up to them if they choose to or are able, and they just drive back in here and then they're come to the call.
How has the
So-
response been in a structure fire situation?
It's one of those things that kind of comes and goes, but usually we get a good few that come back. You're never getting anybody, but sometimes you get a majority, but 3, 4 come back usually.
Mm-hmm.
So would this be something that, after this contract expires, could we revisit this issue and see, you know, if there were structural fires and if we did have a hard time getting volunteers to come over and stuff, that we would have to probably revamp it then?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
This would be something
So
we could
just leave
negotiate
that
next
one
time.
open there, because, I mean, I would hate for us to make this decision and then have a major problem where we, you know, I don't want any liability for the ones that would need the extra help or delay times because of it.
Right.
But you're assuring us that that would not happen because we already have a fully staffed fire department. When there is a structural fire, the on-call people are just on call to, what do they do?
Well, they're there to supplement, you know,
Okay.
we're not staffed enough to have a bunch of people running around extra. You know, when we get a structure fire, we can use anybody we can get. So we have a mutual aid agreement, we call back our own people. So anybody extra on a fire emergency is used. You know, if we get 2 people, they're gonna be used. If we get 8 people, we're gonna use them. So I get your statement, but that's a hard statement to say that's, we can't guarantee nothing's gonna go
Right.
wrong. You know, we would like people closer too, but like I said, to make it small, we sort of limit our pool of who is willing to be employed. So we're just trying to expand that a little bit.
And in the case of a large fire, you have other departments that respond as well.
We have mutual aid agreements.
Right.
with-
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Right. I can recall a couple of big fires where you had basically everybody that was within, 30 miles came.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's just my thought. I just think that, you know, they should live within Avon Park area. The 10 miles, Sebring, yeah, I can see that, you know, but
Well,
mean,
15
expanded it to
miles gets you
15
just
miles.
past 66. That's not even like Lake Placid area.
Yeah, it's still in South Sebring.
I know where
Right,
it is.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
I just said my thoughts and my opinion now. That's just me.
All right. Do we have any questions
Well,
or?
in the future, I was just wondering, I wouldn't object to an incentive for individuals to live inside the city. I mean, I really would prefer them. I know that Mr. West did that, has been here ever since, and, maybe I'm opening a can of worms when I say an
Yeah,
incentive,
I
but
don't think they would be against that.
at the end of the day, I mean, we really want them to be part of our community as well, not another, right?
Warren West, retired firefighter. My address is mine. I was required to move within the city limits because we had a chief that required that. Okay. Since then, we've had city managers are not allowed to can now live outside the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a fire chief that came in, and he was the one who just said you can live where you want to live within a certain radius, right? Which was I was under who was that? Trainer. So Trainer is the one who changed that, so we can get a bigger pool of applications and people apply. So I am like Mrs. Brenda here. I'm with her. I think they should live inside the city, but that's not practical. Not anymore. Right? So like you said, we have young people. They don't want to live within the city limits. They want to do what they want to do. So 15 miles was an agreement that our contract did not pass unanimously because of the 15 miles. All right. So that was the best we could do to get on our side as a union to come up, because they don't want any restrictions. All right. So.
Okay, do we have any?
As far as people being called back, we're not on, what would you guys say, standby pay. We don't get standby unless it's an emergency, like a hurricane, a declared emergency or something like that. So nobody's on standby. So it is all camaraderie that brings them back in. Their fellow firefighter, their fellow firefighter's wife, we don't want to see anybody get hurt at a fire. So that's why they return to fires as it is. So, like you say, some days are better, and some days are just great. It all depends. But most of it is camaraderie that brings them back.
So what you're saying, that when the union took the vote, the contention was that they didn't want people living outside,
No, they
between the
didn't
10 and
want-
the 15? They don't want any restrictions?
They don't want any restrictions.
But the majority ruled against that.
That's right.
And what was the reason?
It's a secret vote.
Okay, just wondering.
We don't know their personal
Okay.
reasons. I don't know their personal reasons why they want.
Okay.
And some of them are very new, so I don't even know. Like the one kid I just met today. I just met a kid today. Yeah, he seems really great. I think Andy's doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, he's hiring some really great people, and he's training some really great I mean, I'm impressed.
Well, if we run it, since this is a contract, and it's, for how long again? Is it 2 years?
3 years.
3 years, right? So, you know, we'll know in 3 years if this was something that was efficient and effective, and we can redress it then. But if it's gonna be a point, I mean, we're doing all of these things to make sure that we recruit the right people, that we retain the people that we have, and that, you know, they have a future with the city. So if it looks like things are falling apart in the fire department within the next 3 years, we'll obviously have to redress this. But at that point, I wouldn't object to an incentive bonus to move them here.
Does the new fire guy live in Avon Park?
Not yet, I don't think,
I
but
don't know where he lives. He came from Daytona Beach.
He'll move to Avon Park.
He moved here so.
Let me just tell you, I just hate it when people want to work for us and live in Sebring.
I agree.
You know, that bothers me. There's nothing wrong with
But you know
Avon
what?
Park,
Every
but
city's that way, right? Most firefighters don't live in Los Angeles City, they live outside the city. Most Orlando firefighters don't live in Orlando because it's a city. They want to live outside the city and move into
Yeah,
it.
but Brenda, that's with every
Avon
employee.
Park.
I would say probably less than 5 people live inside the city that work for the city.
Yeah.
Well, if you compare that to private industry, you know, nobody cares in private industry.
Yep.
You know, what's the difference?
So,
But I think these changes that this contract that we ratified would do great effort in keeping these people here, right? And it also helps with our confidence in the county and the city, not the county, but the city. It brings the confidence in these guys because, you know, we didn't have a lot of confidence in the city for a while there, right? So now, you don't know why, but at this point in time,
Yep.
I look at these guys, they're happy there.
okay.
And this contract, this goes through, this will be a great boost to morale.
Okay.
So,
All right, with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we ratify the contract that was negotiated between the city and the firefighters local 3132 as per our last meeting.
with the changes.
Yes, with the changes at the last meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions? Seeing none, we'll
Well,
call
I'm
the,
just gonna say that, it's not a question, it's a statement. I would not be voting for this because my thought and my feel is that I think a person should live within the city limits of Avon Park, so.
okay. All right, if there's no further questions, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
No,
Deputy Mayor Spurlock,
No.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-2.
thank you. Warren, you had a sign up. Is there anything else?
That
you-
was it. Thank you very much for showing confidence in the fire department and making sure that we have some extended employees that are going to be here for a while because, you know, I'm not getting any younger and I want some young firefighters over there when they have to come to my house. So thank you again.
I agree. Thank you. Good job, both of you.
And we're not going to stay any longer. We're all going to have a beer.
Much
that's
appreciated.
your problem.
Energy in putting this together. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank you, Chief.
Andy.
Good job, all of you.
That's your problem.
All right, item number 15, we have an event request from Heartland Cultural Alliance for January 25th, 2020, with a road closure.
Yes, this is an event, what is this event for? Okay,
January
so this is
25th.
the Art and Heritage, oh yeah.
I
Florida Art
cannot
and
hear what
Heritage.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Is
It's-
it not
you're not-
working?
Yeah,
It
it's
is,
just,
but
it's
you're
just not very loud.
Okay. I turned them up to where they're supposed to be. I don't know what's going on with them.
Can you hear it when you record it, when you're typing your stuff out?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
They have adjustable speakers when they're recording.
This is the Florida Art and Heritage Festival for January 25th, and there's going to be road closures. You have the event form in your packet, and I just need a motion to approve the road closures for it, which would be, do what? Okay, Museum Avenue. We're going to close Museum Avenue for it on January 25th.
Okay.
So this is just for the road closure
This
and
is-
not the event, the community center?
Is the event for the community center already been approved? Galen, has it already been approved?
Galen Thomas, 703 West Winifred Street. I have submitted papers to rent the downstairs of the community center and paid. I'm submitting the event grant, not grant request, but event request to get approval to have the festival and to close Museum Ave.
Okay.
Right.
Just road closure.
Yep.
That's all I,
Yeah, that's all that's here, road closure.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that's all.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what all has to be
So you need
approved, but
approval for the event and the road closure?
I would
So
think
she needs
so.
approval for both? Yep.
I just
Yeah.
have one
Right.
question, maybe a comment.
It's all under one
that,
single uniform.
First of all, this looks like it's going to be a great event. One thing I wanted to make sure, because I think what I read here sounds like a great idea. It says that all the crafts must be made by the person that's selling them, entering them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So nobody's going to be buying them at, from
Dollar
overseas
General
and bringing
or-
them. They're all going to be made. Okay. I think that's going to be a great event, and I'm all for it.
So I'm
Absolutely.
for it too, but I just want to make sure that it's for the road closure alone. Is that, or for the
It's
use
an
of the
event
community?
request, which includes road closure. It's not for the use of the building. She's renting
Okay,
that separately.
That's what I wanted to make sure. This is gonna be great. Yeah.
Is this the steroidal version of what you had? That was an awesome event that was inside that one time. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, this is the steroid version. We
Yeah.
expanded it not just to members, but to
The
throughout
public,
Florida. We've advertised. Now, what we're still short, we need performers. We need, there's any food trucks, things like that. And I still need to find out a little bit more about the procedure for food trucks. I thought maybe Annie Feeney would know about that. Did she ever get food trucks the last time
We
she
don't
was
know.
trying to do
We
that?
deal with
Yep,
this right now.
she can help you out, and
She'll be
the
right
big
out.
thing is with the, if they're gonna
Well,
be
I'm requesting help from y'all.
Yeah, there was some
send
issue.
people our
yeah,
way.
There was a health department issue with the food trucks on city property, and I think that's what she was addressing. And they all have their own insurance and all that. So she does have some info because she was trying to start one up at one point, and then it all fizzled out.
But there's no city thing that I have to do to have food trucks, except something about an inspector. I remember that sitting in a
there's an
meeting.
inspection for if they're gonna be using propane on site.
If they're gonna use
Yeah,
propane.
a fire inspection.
Okay,
Galen, Marnita can help you with that as well, on the
Marnita
food truck.
can?
Yes.
Yep.
okay. Thank you very much.
Also, whoever closes the road needs to know MOT.
We've
Do
got
it
that.
properly.
Yes, Robert,
We've already got
yeah,
that.
we do that. I send a letter and then Robert
Thank you.
finishes it up. So the recommended motion is to approve the event and the road closure for January 25th, 2020.
Anyone care to make that motion?
I'll
I
make
so
a
move.
motion. Yes,
Second.
absolutely.
So it was so moved by,
Second.
is that Jim Bernard, or was that
I
doesn't
got- I
matter.
got Jim Bernard.
you seconded? I'm talking about the original motion.
I don't know.
Oh,
just-
wait a minute.
We
I
twinned.
thought-
Yeah.
No, we motioned to approve it. You motioned to second it. It's just Jim and I said
Oh.
it at
There
the
you
same
go.
time. Jim can have it.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions?
I'm sorry.
Seeing none, we'll call the
I'm
roll.
tired now.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Galen.
Thank you, Galen.
All right, item number 16, we have approval of 2 volunteer applications for the CRA Advisory Board.
How many openings do we have on the board?
One.
So you can only approve one.
We can only approve one.
What
And
about
one
an alternate?
And,
one
well, and one alternate, yeah.
Are they
we-
both for the same position?
Yes, there's one empty seat.
Okay.
No, we know that one of them is definitely has a business within the CRA district.
The Main
And-
Street District section.
The Main Street District. And the other person did not completely fill out the application, although I don't know if that's something that would disqualify them. I'm not sure if the other person has a residence or business in any of the CRA districts. Do you?
Which one?
Says she's registered voter. She's
been Berlin.
Berlin. Yeah, she has a garden business. She lives on the far south side. This address is on
So
the
she's
far
in the
south
CRA,
side
okay.
of Avon Park, and this is an area that most people that's on the CRA advisory board don't visit. So you have no one from that area.
Okay.
But the
Yeah.
opening is for the Main Street part of the CRA Advisory Board. You've got
Oh.
2 from South Side, 3 from Main Street, and 2 from
You
Airport.
got, that's what I'm saying, those 2 from South Side lives on the north side of South Side. She lives on the south side of South Side.
Well,
I think we're being a little bit particular here, guys.
Yeah.
So what,
I would just bring that out, that, you know, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
well, I would suggest, making a motion to make one of them the full member of the CRA and the other one the alternate.
Do
so
you
that
have any
they're-
alternates now?
No.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
they would be an alternate at large.
Right.
So, you
They
know,
could sit in the absence of anyone that's not at the meeting at that time.
Okay.
That'd be
I'll make a motion that we make Richard Hayes the CRA Advisory Board member with Brulene as the alternate.
second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions?
I have a question for
Go ahead.
Jerry. Since each one of these respective CRA districts are the components of the global CRA board, does the alternate have to be from a particular district that if someone vacates or is absent, do they have to sit in their district seat
No.
or can they sit in any seat?
Any seat.
So if an opening becomes full-time, however, they still have to be in their respective district. There's 3 districts.
Well, only if you have that in your bylaws, that you're doing.
I don't know that they're in there, but,
But you're only, I mean,
technically bound from that. I think that's just what we intended on doing, but I don't know that we're actually bound.
Yeah.
by
well,
that.
but you don't want to have 7 people from Main Street dictating Airport or South Side. That's why there's a balance of groupings of 2 from each, 2 from Main, I'm sorry, 3 from Main because it's the biggest, 2 from Airport and 2 from South Side.
then I would suggest that you not have an alternate then, because whoever you put in as an alternate, if you're gonna have that person automatically fill the position, then you're gonna have that problem.
No, then
Well,
it wouldn't work. It
they
would have
would-
to be, there'd have to be an alternate for each respective district.
They,
In which case,
in my past experience, the alternate would fill the position just at that particular meeting where someone wasn't in attendance, just to make up part of the board. But then if someone stepped off of the board, if that person was from that district, they could fill that position. Otherwise, they would remain an alternate, and you would have to find someone who did fit that district
That
to
would
fill
work.
it.
That was my intention.
Well, I
Is
think
that
it needs,
okay?
yeah,
So the
with you?
alternate person
Okay.
would never become a permanent member.
unless 2 or 1 or the other South Side members resigned, then she
Yeah,
would
if
fill
one
in
of the
one
South
Or if-
Side
or
members
the Main
resign.
Street.
No, because she's
No,
not
just
on Main
South
Street.
Side.
No,
She's-
no, no, I'm talking about, I'm not saying that position.
Okay.
I'm talking about any alternate position. If
Correct.
there's only one alternate, let's say one person from Airport, district fell out.
Yeah.
Then that alternate person would not fill that position?
No,
Permanent.
we
Just
would have to,
temporarily. Just
we would have
temporarily.
Only
to
for
do
that
that.
night,
Just
for
for
the
that
sake of
meeting.
quorum.
Yes.
So that's what I said, so the alternate person could never become a permanent
Well,
position.
They could
They
if
can
they
always
were
apply.
from another district and somebody from that district stepped off of the
Yeah.
CRA advisory board, then that person could fill that. Like, say, if that person was from Main Street, they can be an alternate and sit in for anybody who's absent at any particular meeting. But if they're from Main Street and somebody steps off from the airport CRA, they would not be able to fill that position.
That's what I just said.
But,
Yeah, no
but they
permanent.
would be able to fill a Main Street position if somebody stepped off of it, but they could remain an alternate, and we would have to get an airport person, somebody in the airport district to fill that position. Do you
Yeah,
see
in
what
order
I'm
for her to
saying?
become permanent, either Kelvin or Gerald would have to get off.
Both of them.
Or she would have to have a business or move.
Yeah, or be on a board, be on a board or work in the district that she wants to represent. Where does she work?
She has her own
Anyways,
business.
You have a motion?
we got a motion and a second. Any further questions on that?
So what was the motion?
The motion was to make Richard Hayes the permanent member, have Brulene as the alternate to step in the absence. However, they would be not be made a permanent member of the Main Street or the airport.
Alternate at large,
Alternate at large, yes.
and Mr. Hayes permanent to the Main Street.
Is that what does she want to do that? Was she told that there was only one position available?
We didn't ask.
Calvin Shepherd is the one who recruited her to apply. I don't know what he told her.
The fact is, if you,
Well, why would he tell-
I don't know.
if you vote, if you vote to make it an alternate and they say, I don't want to do that, then I just won't do
yeah, I
that.
got
Right,
that,
right, it
but
won't
this
hurt
is-
anything, so.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at her application and she didn't even sign it. So I don't even know if she really wants to do it. That's my question.
Well,
We'll-
maybe
The
she does.
application needs to be revamped.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll contact her and get her to fill it out correctly, or if she doesn't want it, we'll dismiss her.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes,
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Item number 17, we have the approval of adding Michael Shepard to the Citizens Selection Committee. So my question on this is, how many members do we have currently?
11.
We have 11, so we've got an odd number.
Where we on now?
We're on item number
Oh,
17.
no, we have
Make
10,
11.
we have 10 because Bill Jarrett did not want to do it, that's right.
He did not.
So,
Right.
this one would make 11.
Okay. All right. Odd numbers are best in my opinion.
I agree.
I make a motion, we approve Mr. Michael Shepard to be on the Citizen Selection Committee.
Second.
Any further questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes,
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Item number 18, we have the approval of the Christmas holiday closings. Kim, there's a lot of information here. Why don't you break it down real quick for us?
Well, pretty much what it boils down to is that the council adopted the county's holiday calendar, but the county is actually taking December 25th and 26th off. And we, as staff, would prefer to have the 24th and the 25th off. So we would like to just go ahead and have that amended for Christmas, that we would have the 24th and 25th rather than what the county has.
I agree.
Okay, do we have any objections to that? Anyone care to make that motion?
I make the motion, we go ahead and change the holiday schedule. That will change the Christmas time off to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, 24th and 25th of December.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions?
And our policy does state the 24th and 25th, so.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Councilmember Bernard?
Yes,
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. All right, going ahead to item number 22, we have the beautification efforts on the mall. Maria, that's you.
Yes, and we had talked about this when we had asked Mr. Jones to rescind the bid that was out there for maintenance of the mall, and he's gone. So what I was hoping to do is see where we stood with that, if he's done anything in regards to more of a green thumb approach towards the maintenance of the mall.
So you're just looking for an update?
Yeah, I wanted an update, but also to see if there was anything regarding, what our current schedule is. I really want to pin it down to where we actually get a bid out there or with something concrete. And, does he need input from the garden clubs or from a landscape architect that can help him, or designer, with when to trim this, when to cut that, when to mow this, when not to mow it to where it's scalped. It seems like we're cheating ourselves when we think that we're not going to have to mow it that frequently when we're not, but yet we scalp it and then it just has big old piles of debris everywhere. That we don't know how many times we're going to have to mow it, and I think that needs to be narrowed down as well as part
Okay,
of.
well, let me get him to type up, a summarized version of an update for it, and
Yeah.
we'll put all this, by him to get him to respond to.
Okay.
And one of the things also was, let me finish with, let Jerry do his thing.
Hey, Tom, take a drink.
A lot of the lights that remain during Christmas remain on the mall throughout the year. So, before they took them all down, I just wanted to check and see which ones we could leave up there. And I know that the ones in front of the Jacaranda Hotel were left up, but they weren't working. So I know that they started working on them just before Christmas, but they should have been worked on in June and July when they were actually out. That way stuff doesn't catch up on them. But if we're going to keep the lights on throughout the year, let's make them work and not just have them hang there, with no bulbs.
Okay.
But I was hoping, we had talked at the beginning of the year when we separated funding for the mall. I'd really like to see the trees lit up in front of the Little Italy.
Okay.
There was an issue with people mowing over the extension cords or something, but those oaks are just perfect for other little lights. It kind of signifies we're open. And, the
Not
owner
like
there
the-
at Little Italy has stated that if there's a light fixture that he can, if he can turn them on and off, he'd be more than happy to do that rather than relying on solenoids that sometimes don't work.
Now, in the trees there, you think just the white lights?
Yeah, the same little orbs that we have on the other end, but, that comes down
Okay.
to budget issues. But we had talked about decorating 4 sections of the mall. They haven't been done. All we ever really had is still the one gazebo mall, but we set money aside for for 4 sections, and they're not done.
Yeah, some of them are not working now, other than the jacaranda coming up the mall. Some of the light posts are out already too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Kim, it really requires someone driving at night and looking at it. And that's one of the issues that, I have is that, we don't want to work Sundays, but we don't want to stay late either. But we have a lot of employees that, just drive down the mall and look at what's out because the rest of the 9,000 citizens that live here see it. How is it that our employees don't?
Okay.
Are you talking about lights that are in the mall
Just
or
on
in
the mall
on the
in
side of the
general,
mall?
in general, but particularly, just our lamp posts.
I'm talking about in front of Little Italy.
Well, the ones in front of Little Italy, like I said, we had set some money aside for that.
I
And
understand, but are they on the mall or are they on the
no,
side
on the
of
mall, on the mall. If we can put the same little orbs, those little globes that we have in front of the jack, that no one will mow over those because, there'll just be some little plug somewhere. But there again, it just comes down to being able to maintain it.
I mentioned the globes at the Jack to Robert, and he said those belong to them. that
No,
don't
we own 'em.
maintain 'em. Okay.
Well, we need to find that out, obviously.
No, we owned them. We bought those lights. The city
Okay.
bought those lights. It was $6,000 left over from something when June Fisher was here. We owned those lights.
Okay.
If that's the reason why they were never fixed, then the jack would have fixed them. But no, they are ours. That's just,
Okay.
he helped hang them up. What are you talking about? Jesus. Well, but they wouldn't be hanging it for the hotel.
Needs a truck, lift him up there to do it with.
Anything else?
Okay, the other thing also, this is number 22 that we're still on, right?
Yep.
All right, so now that we have this parkway that's all built up and everything, we have a kind of an entrance on the south end of town. And I just noticed that the county the other day put some plantings and stuff on one of those roundabouts. And, I would really like to see some effort put into something on the south entry on Memorial that says you're in Avon Park. Now, I know code enforcement is a really important factor to this because a lot of these properties there, could have some cleanup, and some dump sites also are located along those sidewalks. That has to be addressed. But, rather than, I don't know how we acquire garbage and it doesn't get picked up unless someone calls, and usually it's 3 or 4 days later. But I was talking to a resident who happens to have the phone number to someone at Public Works, and when he calls, Public Works shows up and picks up his debris. I'd like to have that service, and I'd like to know where I sign up for that.
Okay. Maria, let me ask you a question. Let me just make a statement. Last night I drove the roundabout for the first time, and when you're coming off the parkway, one of the signs says, go to the left to the college, but there's nothing that says go to the right for Avon Park.
Right.
Okay.
So we need to address that, and I agree with you. There needs to be something saying, hey, you're in Avon Park now.
We could have a welcome to Avon Park sign. like
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
we have on the very north end on 27, it's like a little brick wall thing, it's just up in
Yeah.
Avon Park. We should
Just
if we
the-
just have some kind of property, we could put it on there.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
know
the
that we
question.
don't have a very
Monument
large
type thing?
easement there at all, so
Wow.
just,
What was that?
Like a monument type thing?
well,
Yeah.
not
Right.
necessarily. Even palm trees and a decorative little landscape would be nice, it'd be less to mow. But, some pretty little something on both sides of the street, that way it looks like you're coming somewhere rather than just one side. If
Okay.
Duke Energy can put those god-awful looking poles all around town, there's no reason why we can't put a few palm trees there that says welcome.
And
Okay.
Kim, can you even check with the county and see if on the parkway itself, there's nothing that says, hey, look, if you go to the right from the parkway, you will go into Avon Park.
Yeah,
There's something,
yeah.
there's a sign that say if you go to the left,
You're going
you're
to the
going
college.
to the college.
Okay.
But I guess you just drive to the right and see where you end up.
Yeah, and along those same lines, the south entry on 27, it says city limits. Our city limits have been expanded since
Oh,
a long time ago, and that
So we
sign
need our
is
city
in a-
limit
yeah,
sign moved?
It needs to be moved further south.
Okay.
The Parkway is beautiful, by the way.
It is.
Have you driven the backside to go to Sebring on the backside yet?
No, I drove it
yeah.
when it was
It took me
halfway
it took
done.
me 5 minutes to get there. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Wonderful. I like it.
I'm not sure I'm happy with the roundabouts,
What is it
though.
called?
Panther Parkway.
We can just get that bumped up to 70 miles an hour. We'll be all right.
Oh, my goodness.
The Avon Park Autobahn, we'll call it.
Anyway, so the signage obviously needs to be changed on the south entry to Highway
I've
off of
seen
27.
that city limit sign and wondered how come our public works department wasn't in the city.
They drive by it every day, every day.
Okay.
So that right there just needs to be moved if at all possible. And then again, I noticed that, you know, you had gotten a lot of trees trimmed on the mall recently in
Right.
preparation for Christmas. The same palms are all over on the south end of town. There's a little gateway looking thing there right before the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be trimmed like scalped. They can be trimmed like that. They don't have to be like this. But kind of tidy that little area up there to let them know that you're coming into Avon Park.
Okay.
And I know this is going to sound corny to all of you, but right there at that bridge, we have a lot of, I don't know the name of the trees, but they're like really invasive on that side between the bridge and the lake. There's dry land there.
Are they
It would be
pepper
really
trees?
neat if we could have some oleanders or something that blooms along that bridge. That way it just looks really nice, because right now it's a scraggly mess.
Yeah, the mirror trees look pretty, don't they?
Well, and they pod
Bean
everywhere.
trees and all.
Bean
they are.
trees?
Yeah, ear trees, bean trees, both.
Yeah,
of them.
I don't know who owns that, but if, you
State.
know, I could probably get a lot of the plants donated if we wanted to get some oleanders out there. But I don't know how much height we have to see what height we can get, but that has super low maintenance. And I hear that worms eat them all the time, but if that were the case, then Orlando would be eaten up with worms by now, because their oleanders are everywhere.
They are pretty.
Is this something you wanted to do before you have your master plan for the mall? Or do you want to do all
We
that at
can, no,
once?
this is separate from that. The master plan for the mall is really a maintenance plan for the mall and
Well, you would
longevity
have
for trees and
maintenance here,
shrubs
too.
and things, but this is just a gateway, just to kind of revamp. Now, obviously, it would require someone to go in there and irrigate at first, but, you know, you can get those little diapers. They're like little things that you latch on to the tree trunk.
Right.
Actually, you sit it
Bags.
next to it, you fill it, and it just drips all by itself, and then you just go and replace it, once every 2 weeks or so? Or
You can put a 5-gallon bucket there and do the same thing too.
yeah, a bucket is the
Yeah,
same
you
thing.
can take a bucket, put 2 small holes in the bottom, and it'll just drip that water for almost 4 or 5 days.
Rather
instead-
than- yeah.
Instead of buying those things that go around the trees.
So there's other ways to go about it, but I mean, these are just beautification efforts that don't require a lot of it doesn't require a lot of maintenance in the long run. But I'd really love to see something on the south end of town, especially along the bridge.
Okay.
Anything else on 22?
Other than that, I think the north end, what do we have here? West entry off to Main Street. Now, our city limits go out there by the airport as well. I don't know that we can put anything on over there, but I'm just thinking out loud. You know, the airport is a nice building, the terminal building. The city limits, though, kind of go even further west there, so not by far, just barely. But there's nothing there that says Avon Park. Other than the mile 30 minutes, I mean, other than a sign that says, you know, 30 minutes away, it says Avon Park 30 miles. That's all we have.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sign ought to be there.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it on that.
All right. Anything else on 22? 23, status of RPAC project, Donaldson Park, and future RPAC priorities. Maria, it's you again.
Yeah, I was just asking about that. I noticed that in the CIP, FERDAP grants were removed from the CIP, and that's pretty much free money for park recreation amenities and things, where you don't have to rely on the RPAC dollars. And I just didn't know if that was removed for a reason, or if it was because there's no one to be able to write those grants. But nonetheless, they're not difficult, and I was just hoping that at some point we looked at that grant fund to help assist in building infrastructure for our parks. But the other thing also was, what is the timeline at this point for the Donaldson Park? It says it's scheduled for the 1920 budget, but when are we gonna be done with it?
Danielle tells me that we can't start that until all of the playground equipment is done for this fiscal year, for the last fiscal year.
And when's that gonna be done?
We're expecting the one for Donaldson Park anytime. I haven't heard of an arrival date for Tulane. The Durham Martin. The Exopod at Donaldson is already put in.
Okay.
And I understand that people really have been enjoying it.
Anyway, the longer that waits, then we lose out on future RPAC dollars. So just please keep that in mind. I don't wanna lose any money that we don't have to.
Anything else on 23?
Nope.
24?
This was a conversation I had with Danielle. She was going to see, I think she said after a while when things kind of settle down, to look at the balance remaining in the unused buyback program. And I thought it was a line item. So if it's not a line item, this
not
was
what she
supposed to be the
indicated to
money that
me.
was gonna be used for raises, and we set it all aside as a line item in the budget?
From what I understand, she has to go through several different cost centers to determine that amount.
It's from different departments is what I understand from her, is that she has to go through each.
There was $100,000 in there. I just wanna know how much of it was spent.
Okay.
You know, because that's general fund money.
Okay. So you just want to know what's in that?
What's the balance? That goes into contingency.
Okay.
But anyway, that, I don't know, can't you just get the list of who signed up and then just carve it out from there rather than looking at cost centers?
Exactly. It sounds
Yes.
like the right thing to do.
There couldn't have been that many.
Deduct that pay out of it.
Anything else
That's
on
what's
23? Or
No, it's
excuse me,
24.
24. Seeing none.
Oh,
20
wait,
no,
yes,
hold
there
on.
was something. Let me see here. October, I had a little note here from the agenda. D10, October 28. Hang on, I might not need it after all, but I had something, a little note here from the October 28 meeting. It would be in the minutes from there. What month, what number is that one under?
Which one?
October 28, okay, D10. Yeah, it was just basically off of that, the buyback employee vacation. We had approved 80 hours versus 40, so there should have only been done one time rather than twice, so there ought not to be any more money being spent out of there. Because the policy in the handbook says that you can do as many iterations until the money runs out. If we gave it an 80-hour per employee, then that means that there are no more iterations.
Right. No, that's what we had said. We were going to do it all at once
Okay,
because it was
so I just wanted to
late.
make sure that was the case and it wasn't a free-for-all.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay.
that was the decision.
That's all.
All right, item number 25, we have ordinance number 14-2019.
This is an ordinance of the City of Avon Park, Florida, providing for a title for the ordinance, providing for scope, purpose, definitions, and general limitations on noise, providing for specific noise prohibitions, sound control standards and exemptions, providing for waivers and permits, providing for measurement techniques, providing for enforcement and penalties and other remedies, providing for no liability for a reasonable good faith trespass by enforcement officer, providing for administration, providing for amendment of sections 4-24 and 14-3 of the city code, providing for scrivener's error, liberal construction, codification, repeal of conflicting codes, ordinances and resolutions, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, do we have a motion for ordinance 14-2019?
I make a
Second.
motion, we approve
I'll take it.
ordinance
Public hearing.
14-2019.
This will be for the second reading. We will open a public hearing for this ordinance. Public hearing is now open for ordinance number 14-2019. Anyone wishing to speak to the noise ordinance? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. We have a motion and a second on the table.
I just have one comment that a lot of people questioned me on the 9 PM limit. They thought that that was quite early.
It depends on the noise.
Well,
Right.
that's true, but I'm just telling you. that a
Depends
lot
on
of
which
people
side of the
thought
noise
that-
you're on.
Yeah.
Thought that there were a bunch of spoilers, but that's just my comment.
2 minutes.
We
I
need
just
to.
mirrored the code
God, you
from
sure?
the county.
Okay.
From
We
the
need-
county, you said?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We need
Because the
to
sheriff is
pause
gonna
for a
enforce
minute
this law.
because we have to
That's
change
good.
the CD.
'Kay.
What?
Houston, if you'll hold on just 1 minute, we need